team please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to take note of the fact that prior to this public meeting, the entire Board of Commissioners met in executive session and discussed real estate, litigation, and personnel. And let's now move to the agenda. We have on the first matter, it involves our police department, and we have some background here. Our Police Department and Civil Service Commission have done a lot of work and have come up with 3 candidates for openings on our police force. Yes, okay, let me do that. So while you're, Superintendent, are you going to come up here, or are you going to handle this from your position there?
Whatever is your pleasure, sir. I can do it right from here.
Okay.
It's not a problem. As you know, we did give the civil service exam a few months ago. That consisted of a written examination and oral examination, physical agility test. Following that, they had to go through a very rigorous background, which included a complete background check and a polygraph exam. But then I always have to credit Mr. Zinkowski, the township manager. He added a layer of the background, which was an interview, a final interview with myself, Mr. Zinkowski, and other members of the staff. To go to show you the level of intensity and the strict hiring practices we actually have an opening for 4 officers, but we only found 3 that we feel were qualified enough to serve the residents of Radnor Township. The first individual that we're asking the board's approval to offer a conditional offer of employment, and of course you know that will enable them to get a physical and a psychiatric evaluation. The individual's name is Sean Patterson. He's 23 years old. He currently lives in the Springfield section, Delaware County. He did graduate from Springfield High in 2010. He graduated from Shippensburg University in 2014 with a bachelor's degree. He did attend the Delaware County Community College Police Academy. He's currently employed as a deputy sheriff with the Delaware County Sheriff's Department since 2014. The next individual, a young lady by the name of Stephanie, it's pronounced Rock, like the rock that you would throw, but it's spelled R-A-C-H-T. And Miss Rock is 25 years old. She currently lives in Greenfield Township, Pennsylvania, which is near Scranton, but in Lackawanna County. But she plans on relocating and living right outside of the city, right outside of Radnor Township here. She graduated Lakeland High School in 2008. She went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania in 2011. She's got a bachelor's degree in criminology and minor in psychology. She went to the Lackawanna Police Academy. She graduated in 2012, and she's currently employed in 2 different police departments part-time, Scott Township and Archbold Borough, both since 2012. And then finally, we have a young man named Brady McHale, 22 years old. He lives in Montgomery County, graduated Marion High School in 2012. He's at Newman University working towards his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. He went to the Delaware County Police Academy as well, graduated in 2013. He's currently employed as a part-time officer in Easttown Police Department in Chester County. He's also a volunteer firefighter from Gladwin. That's it, sir.
Thank you. Chief, is there a motion to offer conditional offers of employment to these 3 people?
I'll move to approve Sean Patterson, Stephanie Rock, and Brady McHale approval for conditional offer of employment.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion up here amongst the Board of Commissioners? Is there any comment from our staff or from members of the audience? All right. If not, I think we can vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Let's move to public participation now, and as is my practice, we ask that people who cannot stay for the full meeting are welcome to come up and address the Board of Commissioners and the public. If you can stay for the full meeting, we would ask you, in deference and out of respect to other people and to the agenda, our business agenda, that you wait until we get through the business agenda to make your statements. And I recognize the man in front of me. His name is Martin Costello.
Thank you. President Higgins, I'm here to talk tonight briefly about the Wall of Honor that will be dedicated in the spring of 2016 at Radnor High School, lest we forget. We have Linda Stein, our reporter, has a great article in this week's Suburban and Wayne Times with pictures and the whole thing, and the picture was taken December of 2014 with our past president there. We had a great day that day. And that picture, Elaine, is currently in this week's Suburban and Wayne Times. What I'm here tonight to ask, and is this will be totally funded by private donations from the citizens of Radnor Township, past students from Radnor Township, and of course, businesses and individuals. I'm asking if our commissioners will place this on their Facebook pages, and that being the place to donate the money will be for the Radnor Township School, Radnor High School, at 130 King of Prussia Road in Wayne, PA. Any amount, obviously, will be accepted. And if you look at it this way, there's a lot of students who will participate in this event. There's a lot of people from Radnor Township who served in the military. We have 3 right here on our board. And I'm going to ask you to use your Facebook pages to ask the citizens to donate to this very, very honorable cause. I was at Veterans Day at Radnor High School. Everybody in the school was there, and our new Principal Dan Beachtel, had a number of students honor the veterans. And one young lady stood up and she mentioned the Wall of Honor, and she said, they not only gave their lives, but they gave 2 lives, the lives they were living at that particular moment in time, and the lives that they were denied because they were killed in action. A very emotional time. Our principal said that the fundraising would start that particular day. And as it turns out, a lot of the people who know about this Wall of Honor have been coming into my store, and approximately $1,700 or so have been funneled down to the school already from the people who come into my store on a daily basis. One particular guy does not, Mr. Cohen. He's a 1975 graduate from Radnor High School, and he made a nice donation. And Mr. Joy, who was a 1990 graduate. They just had their 25th reunion, and he is asking all the members who attended that particular event to make donations. So, in summary,
Marty, for the benefit of those that did not read the article, tell us just briefly what the Wall of Honor is all about.
The Wall of Honor is going to be involving 55 members of students who attended Radnor schools. And 5 perished from World War I. The first 2 to die were Mr. William Bateman and Mr. Edward Gallagher. Our American Legion post right here in Wayne is named after those two gentlemen. They were both killed in 1918, about 30 or 40 days apart, just before the war was over. And true heroes. Mr. Bateman graduated in 1911 from Radnor High School, and Mr. Gallagher, 1913. The last three, and we have honored each and every one of them, was Mr. Larry Marshall, graduated from 1966 from Radnor High School, and was killed in action in May 1st, 1968. Donald Burris, missing in action, December 22nd, 1969, graduated from Radnor High School in 1965. He was a helicopter pilot. We had a big celebration. I was telling Mr. Higgins about this, President Higgins, not too long ago, over at the Delaware County Veterans Memorial. Over 300 people showed up for this event, and 35 members from the class of 65 showed up, along with members of the Boy Scout Troop 284, which he was an Eagle Scout when he was a young man. And they helped the Marines fold the flag, and I presented the flag, which for some reason the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines do not present flags for missing in action gentlemen. So I told his sister that I would do this for Donald, and I presented the flag to his 97-year-old father, a World War II veteran, who accepted the flag. He's been around that long. And the other one was John Paul Murphy, who I spoke with in length with our Commissioner Fisher from Rosemont, Garrett Hill, and he was killed in action November 10th, 1968, and an only child, and we had a ceremony for him at the Delaware County Veterans Memorial. And that flag of his was presented to one of his classmates, who gave it back to me, and me and Jax Norman presented it to the Radnor High School library, because in his class will, he requested that all his worldly possessions and money be given to the Radnor High School. So he did, along with the plaque that was given to him at the Radnor High School 50th reunion, which I was invited to present plaques to the 20 returning veterans from Vietnam who showed up at that particular event, and we also honored Donald Burris and John Paul Murphy. So the wall will encompass all the members of Radnor schools who died in service of our country. 3 from Vietnam, 5 from World War I, and 47 from World War II. So I'm asking the people from Radnor Township and from the Radnor schools who graduated from there, and those who were in the military, and even you commissioners, not for township money, but your own funds, to donate to this wall, because the wall is going to be something that was designed by the present students. And it's going to have 2 kiosks, which will have all the information that the students from St. Catherine's School right here in Wayne, and from the Radnor High School, who are working on it now for additional information, from the time they were born, where they lived here in Radnor, when they graduated from the schools or received their degree, and where they died, and what branch of service they were in. And this will be a continuing educational program. For as years and years go by, they'll say, well, that was my great-great-great-uncle or my great-grandfather or my grandfather, and you don't know, you forgot to put this in about this particular soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, or Coast Guard guy. So that's why I'm here tonight. And as Linda mentioned, it is a dream come true. I thank you for your time. Lest we forget, we cannot forget these men and women who served and lost 2 lives. The lives they lost on the battlefield, and the life that was taken from them that we enjoy here today. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. It's good. It's a great cause that you have. It really is. It's important, especially for our young people, to understand sacrifices that our men and women of the armed services have made in all of our wars. And this is a wonderful way for them to understand it, how important it is to fight to preserve liberty. So I thank you very much for doing it. I'm sure all the members of the board feel that way as well.
Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you. I should have mentioned that, as John Nagel reminded me, we have taken one item off the agenda, and that is a settlement of a matter of litigation involving the White Dog Cafe on Lancaster Avenue. That will not be on tonight's agenda. All right, now we can go ahead and entertain anybody else that has a comment to make from the public. And I know this person.
Good evening. Everyone, I'd like to extend a special thanks, take the opportunity to thank the Board of Commissioners, Township staff, our police department, who supported the endeavor of having a public forum concerning Villanova arming some of their public safety officers. Again, I wish to thank all who attended, all who helped to organize this initiative, making it a very productive evening. Also at this time, I'd like to give a special thanks to our township staff and to the police department. Without their help, I don't think it would have been as good as it was, and also it gave me a small window into their very complex daily lives and all that they have to handle. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Is there anybody else that would like to make a statement at this time? Yep. Mr. Perot.
Paul Perot, Radnor Township. I just have a question about contributions to the library. I think in 2016 we're making a $915,000 contribution. Is that correct? The $11.5 million bond that was passed, part of that was to go to the Radnor Township or the Radnor Memorial Library. How much of the $11.5 million went to the library?
I have that number here.
2.5.
$2.5 million, I think.
$2.5 million. The life of the bond is what, 20 years
20
maybe?
years.
Do you know what the annual cost of that bond is for the $2.5 million?
Well, I can ask our Director of Finance to answer that, but I do know that one of the reasons we went out with a new issue in November of this year was to reduce our debt service. And we've gotten a lower rate with this issuance than we had with the existing bonds. But
Okay.
I'll defer to Bill White on that to get that answer.
When the library requested that donation, did we ask them to match the funds by any chance?
Well, I don't think match is the correct term. I mean, we certainly, they came to us for help, and they said that they had their own plan to raise private funds, and they've
Okay.
done that. And the director of the library is here in the audience, and she can probably update all of us on exactly how much they've raised privately so far.
They've raised money privately and using some of their endowment as well. And I'm sure we can get the numbers if we need them.
Okay. My reference might be that is it really, sound financial policy to issue a bond to a private institution? We now have a real estate tax increase due to that, and it's a private institution. Why are we having to be taxed for that?
Well, it is a nonprofit tax-exempt corporation under Pennsylvania law.
Right, but independent of Radnor Township.
I'm not quite sure that it meets the definition of a private corporation.
Right,
I don't know what that
okay.
is anyway.
But it's not part of Radnor Township.
Well, the township owns the real estate. It owns
They own the real estate,
building.
and they own the building.
And as an institution, I think our Township Board of Commissioners has an obligation to make sure that our free library stays healthy and stays open. And that's the rationale behind our contributions.
Well, okay. Not everyone seems to agree with that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perot.
Mr. President, if
Yes, Mr. White.
the annual debt service on that averages about $169,000 per year over the 20-year life,
That's just on the library portion.
just on the library piece.
Thank you.
yes.
Thank
And
you.
that's principal and interest.
Yes, that's principal and
Okay.
interest, yes.
All right, we're going to move now to the, if there's nobody else, is there a gentleman that wants to say something? Sure, come forward.
Mr. President and Commissioners, thank you. My name is John Statz. I'm here to talk about the Radnor Township rental fee.
Thank you.
Let me give a little background on myself and the rental fee. I'm a firefighter at Radnor Township for 33 years. I purchased my property in Radnor 33 years ago because it was in the location that I could respond to fires from. After I moved from there, I have rented it to firefighters over the years, and I'm here to talk about the rental fee schedule. And if you look at the first page that I gave you, it basically references the current fee schedule that was adopted on December 16th of 2013. It has had 5 amendments to it over those past couple years. As passed, the next page is the ordinance 2013-24 is passed. You'll notice that there's an application late fee after 60 days of $120. You notice on the next page, there's a current version of this that's out with the administration, and you'll notice that after 60 days is crossed out. And I said, wow, that's interesting. How did that happen? And when I asked questions about it, I was kind of like, well, we don't really know. And I asked board members, I said, did anyone get a proposal to change this? And apparently there was none. So when I met with the administration, I was told it was an administrative change. And I said, oh, okay, interesting. So I went back, and just for review, the next slides are all the resolutions that did make amendments to the fee schedule. You'll notice the first one was for a parking fee. The next was to provide some volunteer parking. The next was for some K-9 changes. Another 2015-06 for some parking. Next, 2015-14 for late fee dining fee. So there was never any change that enacted or allowed that late fee to be changed. The background on this is that this late fee actually was adopted with 307 other fees incorporated in the 2013 ordinance 2013-24. Now, according to the Home Rule Charter, there's no changes allowed to that fee schedule without board approval. So you'll notice that this late fee was clearly stated in the original fee schedule. And in the Home Rule Charter, if we go to this page, it clearly states here, establishing, levying, and collecting taxes and increasing or decreasing rates of existing taxes belongs to you, the board. Providing a fine or other penalty or assessment or establishing a rule or regulation or for violation of which a fine or other penalties imposed, again, belongs to you, the board. Every proposed ordinance shall be introduced in written form. No ordinance may contain more than one subject, which shall be expressed clearly in the title. Any ordinance which repeals or amends an existing ordinance shall indicate specifically the matter to be omitted, added, or changed. Again, this is the Home Rule Charter that we run this Radnor Township by. So my point here is that this change was made without board approval, usurping your authority. Now, I went back and I looked at it and I said, well, how did it really happen? You know, geez, this seems kind of ridiculous that, you know, you get triple the fee if you missed by 30 days. So I just went back and looked at it. I said I got a letter on May 22nd that cost 48 cents. I got a second letter on July 9 that cost $6.48, a certified letter. I got a duplicate that cost 48 cents that same day. Interesting. So according to the rules, the fee should have been $120. However, I got charged double the fee. On July 28th, $240. So it's incorrectly charged. It's 300% of the single-family property if you have a single family, so you're going to pay 300% more. So I looked at the other taxes in the township for other taxes that are similar or other fees. If you look at your property taxes, you get a notification earlier, by the way. You can pay it early and get a 10% discount. You can pay it on time, or you can pay it late and pay 10% extra. That makes total sense. It's same true for Delaware County property tax, your Radnor Township school tax. So I looked at other fees. What about the sewer fee? Okay, that's an on time or late. You get 30 days to pay it or 10%. The stormwater fee, on time or late, 10%. The rental fee, on time, or a 300% fee if you're late. Not consistent with any other fees or late fees with anything else in this township. Doesn't make sense. Now I said, okay, well, what other options do we have to pay it? You'll notice online fees. Can we pay it online? No. There's no notification online. There's no way to pay it online. There's no other way to pay this fee except, pay it there. So the township's never done anything to improve the process for getting this paid, right? So what I'd like to ask the board to do is to go back and ask the administration to follow the rules that were passed without changing the rules to suit whatever their issue is that particular day. So we need to really go back and audit it and find out how many people were charged incorrectly. So my resolution is, let's audit find out what fees are incorrectly. I came down here twice, so I'd say we add a 10% inconvenience fee for me to have to come here twice and pay this. Remove the late fee from 2013-24 and apply the standard 10% late fee, as all other fees in the township go by. Send notifications by regular email. Instead of sending them 30 days, send them 60 days ahead. That way you get a much more likelihood of getting paid on time. Send an email notification. Geez, they collect my email information, but they never send me an email, ever. They have my email and my cell number. Couldn't get a phone call, couldn't get an email, but I can get a late fee. Send a late notice by regular mail at the due date, and finally send a notice by email or certified if it's 30 days late. That makes sense. Why should we pay $6.48 when we can pay $48 and probably get the same conclusion? So, lastly, how about if we adopt a new resolution providing for rental property owners to get an input into this? Not one board member had input into this administrative change. Provide email to submit the rental fee online and provide an online payment for it. Pretty simple. The township has the capabilities to do it, but it hasn't. So I'd like to ask that, Don, you represent my part of the township, that we present a resolution to change this and to make it right, instead of including it with 307 other fees where no one got a chance to review it.
Thank you, Mr. Stats. I'm sure that we'll have people looking at this issue. I don't know any of the background and none of the details on this, but I know we have a township manager and his staff that will give it full time and attention.
Okay. I did speak to Mr. Rice. He seemed to think that, it wasn't an issue. And I said, well, it is an issue to the people that paid it.
Sure.
So thank you for your attention, and have a good night.
I can understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I found the presentation very compelling. And, I know, Bob, we talked about this before, and, Bob likes to say I'm being too hard, but I think that the frustration that this constituent is expressed and the study, look at how many people are going to put that much work into this. So obviously you feel strongly about it, and what we want to do in the township is not to be socking it to the taxpayers. That's not the intent, and I fully support your suggestions, and if however you want to do this, I'm happy to make that motion. I think that what we can do to resolve this is just to simply put this fee schedule back without the crossed out 60 days, but that's what I'd like to see done. I think that that 60 days is a substantive provision, and the change is not administrative, so I agree with the constituent, so thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Sure, if I can. I know John began by saying that he's a member of the Radnor Fire Company and that he houses firefighters. I know John had brought this to our attention, and I'm sure John is quite upset with this, but I think what this came about is a lot of individuals that have rental properties that have not paid their fee on time. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you've ever paid your fee on time yet, ever. I think that's one of the issues why this necessitated this fee to come about. So I think that's a big part of it. I'm not sure why you wanted to bring the fire company into it, but I know you're involved with the fire company. I think you're involved with the statistics, and I think you did a tremendous job with the research here that you've presented to us. Because I think if you did that kind of homework, I don't think we'd probably be looking at $125,000 a year deficit you're asking for the township, because if you monitored those dollars for the Radnor Fire Company, as much detail that you have here that you've brought forward. But I think also too, but point of order, Don, that you're looking for here is I think when you have someone that comes up here and right away you stand behind of someone who makes a comment about one of our staff in our departments doing something wrong, or right away saying that, as Rich says, that he believes that this is accurate, that's not accurate. So I think when we have someone that stands up here, and Don, I'm not saying about that, but if you want to say that he's 100% accurate and the staff is wrong, he's not accurate. Don, I'm not talking to your part, but.
Okay, but I think he had a concern. He came up here and he expressed it in a calm, analytical way.
I'm expressing my way in a calm way too. But
I don't
think
feel that you're doing that, but I
that's,
think they both made their point. It's time to move on.
Right, and that's fine.
When we do the fee schedule at the beginning of next year, right?
That's correct.
So,
and we will do that.
As I said to you, when we do the fee schedule, we'll have an opportunity to address this, and we'll see where it goes.
Right. That's why I brought it up now, Don, because I figured it was end of year.
And we will do that, and we will look at that too as well. So
now, this is the right time to bring it up. And
right.
so I want to comment on this briefly. And thank you for the call. I received a call from John also. One of the issues that I've heard of from staff is that we have a poor compliance with this fee. So people aren't paying it on time. So when you have poor compliance, the way you drive compliance is you raise the cost. So I support that. We can't have staff continuously trying to get people to pay their bills on time all year. That's not fair to them. So raising the fee. However, I want to mention two things. There's an ordinance underlying all this that sets the policy on the fact that a fee shall exist. The fee schedule that we approve each year, in general, is the dollar amount. The verbiage that's in there, whether or not that changed, when that changed, I don't know when that changed, if that changed at all. But in my mind, what the board approved was the dollar amount. The fact that there's a late fee, and the late fee is $120. If the board wants to in January, I won't be here, but if the board wants to reduce that fee, they can. If they want to drive compliance a different way, they can. But I think we have to recognize that many landlords in this township are not complying with our ordinances and our fee schedule and our fee due dates. And it really puts us in a financial cash flow issue. So we really need compliance. I support penalty fees. I'd argue that a 10% late fee isn't enough because you're taking staff administrative time to reissue those bills, and it's very costly. It costs us a lot of money to run this township that way. So we'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Thank you for the research. Well stated, great suggestions. I think some of them may be employed. I like some of them. So
let me just address a couple things. Because I come from a technology company, the ability to automate this process has been around for years. It's a mail merge, could easily be done. I know the administration here is technically capable of doing it because they do it for other things like, did you ever get a notification of a zoning permit change? Guess what? It's the same process, so it can be done. And I did ask the administration, and I asked for a meeting with Mr. Zinkowski. He didn't meet with me.
Well, we did. Now, see, here we go again. Now, it's the same thing,
wait.
John. So if we want to go back and forth, John, let's go back and we'll talk about that. So point of order now. So, John,
No,
let's be truthful now. So
John,
let's do that.
Okay.
Thank you for coming out.
It can
So
be done.
let's do
I made
that.
my suggestions. I know he'll talk to you about a lot of different things.
We're investing over $1 million in the next 2 years.
Right.
To automate our system. That's going to cover eGov. It's going to have back end, a lot of great functions that we don't have now. That a mail merge is great, but believe it or not, a lot of people don't know how to do that anymore. So, it used to be very common 10, 15 years ago, but today, if you ask the average person how to do a mail merge, they don't know what you're talking about. So I know it sounds obvious, but we're going to automation. It's going to be, we do it now, but the point is, it's administrative overhead. So we'll address it.
Thank you, Mr. Stats. We'll look into this, and we'll have a report to our board, I'm sure, so we can sort this out. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may?
Yes.
I've got one item. We received a letter from William Thomas from Chanticleer. I have a check here for the township in the amount of $20,000. And they are sending a check. The part of the letter is, it's with great pleasure that they enclose a donation to the township for $20,000. They would like $2,000 to support the canine unit and $18,000 to support the tree maintenance and planting. And it can include the purchasing, planting, and care of trees and fees for the certified consulting arborist. And they recognize how fortunate they are to be located in Radnor. It's a beautiful area with majestic trees and delightful parks. And the township employees, police, volunteers, and commissioners are friendly and hardworking in the interest of the citizens of this community. So a $20,000 check here to turn over to Bill.
And if I could just add, we were copied on a donation that Chanticleer also made to our fire company for $10,000 in addition to that. So just a really great example of a nonprofit institution in our township that recognizes and acknowledges and is grateful for the services they are provided from this township without paying taxes and making a gesture to make up for that. So thank you, Chanticleer.
We really do thank you. That's really great. That's a lot of money. St. Nicholas would be very proud. Okay. I think we've covered the audience now. We are at the point where we go into our consent agenda, and the purpose of the consent agenda is to dispose of matters by vote in public that do not require significant amount or any amount of debate. And tonight we have items 3A through 3H to cover in the consent agenda. And any commissioner or any person that doesn't like the fact that we aren't going to debate them can ask that any one of those items be removed from the consent agenda and be placed on our regular agenda where it will be fully aired and discussed. So I will at this time ask for any commissioner to state whether he or she wants to remove any of items A through H from the consent agenda.
Jim, I'd like to remove C.
Item C will come off. Okay. Anybody else? And does anybody from in the audience want to ask us to not consider something under the consent agenda but debate it out in full? No. Okay. Then let us move ahead. Is there a motion to approve items A, B, and then D through H from the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Right. Well, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion carries 7-0. And go ahead, Elaine, on this item.
We don't need to debate this. I just wanted to point out that on the schedule, there's only one June meeting. We have one July, one August, but there's also only one June meeting. I'd like to suggest that we keep 2 meetings in June. I think if we don't, we're going to end up scheduling one at the last minute anyway. And if we don't schedule a second, we're going to be here till 1 o'clock in the morning. June is still a very busy, heavy month. So I would like to suggest that we add a meeting on the 6th of June, although there's a planning commission meeting set for then. I don't know, perhaps we try another location or.
Well, I like the idea. I don't think we can get along with one meeting in June, Bob. I know you're looking out for us and you're looking out for your management. But I think we should have 2 meetings. Does any other commissioner have any feelings on it?
Can we do it on the 13th and do it kind of like what we're doing this month?
Yeah, if we're going to do it, it should be the second and fourth Monday. So I don't feel strongly one way or another. I'll come to however many meetings we have.
There's one on the schedule for the 20th, so if we move it to the 13th, we just have 2 in a row. That works, it's fine.
Well, my sense is if we're going to do it, second and the fourth Monday.
Yeah, we should go back to it's just another normal month is what we're saying.
I prefer that we keep our one meeting per month during the summer months. There's a lot of holidays, vacations, and we only get about 20 cents an hour for this job as it is, so try to increase that to 22 cents, I think would be good.
Well, but I think the point is that it will only load us up at that one and only meeting in July, in June, and then the one and only meeting in July. So I think it makes sense to have 2 in June.
So
I'll move to set the meeting agenda for June on June 13th and June 27th.
Second.
Any further discussion up here? Okay, anybody in the audience want to say anything, or with our staff? Okay, let's all vote now. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Nay. And the motion carries 6-1. So we will have 2 meetings.
5-2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Don, did you vote against it? Oh, I missed that. Okay. Sorry. So we will have a meeting on the 16th and the 27th of June.
Now it would be 13th and 27th.
13th.
And that was striking the one that's listed as the 20th.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go into committee reports now. I would like to ask my 6 fellow commissioners to consider something now. At our last meeting, well, we have been working towards an 11 o'clock completion hour for all of our meetings, and it's generally worked out pretty well. A couple of situations since July when we put it into effect, or August, we did have to extend it past 11. But I would like our board to consider, each commissioner individually to consider how we might ensure that we don't go on for a prolonged amount of time on an individual item. And what I'm asking, and this is all going to be voluntary, I'm not going to ask for a motion, but I'm going to ask each commissioner to consider using either the committee process that's available to us, that is, we could meet as a committee of public works or a committee of personnel or a committee of public safety, independently of our semi-monthly meetings as a full board, and perhaps find out a lot of the details in those committee meetings on an item that's important to all of us and to the public for us to fully consider and debate, and thus do it separately from the main meeting twice a month, and therefore find a way for all of us, the public included, to move forward with not so much intense discussion and detailed analysis of individual issues. And again, this is not directed to anybody in particular. I'm probably as guilty as anybody in doing it, but I do think it's got to be voluntary at this point. And I would like to ask each member to consider that. And an alternative would be to have a voluntary gag rule after 2 minutes. A commissioner can speak for 2 minutes on a subject, or question a member of the staff for 2 minutes, and then that would be it. The 2 minutes that's contributed by the staff or by the audience in response would not be charged against the commissioner. Again, this is all voluntary. It's my own personal view of how we can maybe move things along a little bit faster. At our last meeting, we did go into incredibly fine detail on a couple of our agenda items. And I think we all are the better for it, but I'm just hoping that we can find a way not to do that in future meetings. So that's my view. If anybody else wants to say anything, they're welcome to.
Well, I promise next year I won't I won't say much.
Again, Jim, we've talked about this in many different contexts, but in general, I think it's a bad idea to limit public discussion, to curtail discourse, and to fully explore issues before the board with the constituents, and to limit the amount that elected officials can speak is detrimental to the legislative or the local legislative process, and is in the long run harmful to the township and its constituents. So I'd be opposed to it.
Okay, does anybody else want to chip in?
I think we talked about it, and I think you're alluding to it. We can't forget about the advisory board meetings and attending these, whether you're on the committee or not. If you have a ward that's affected by stormwater, why not go to the stormwater committee meeting and delve into the facts there? They're public meetings, right? So whatever gets done there is valid. So something to remember. It's easier said than done. I know we all have a lot of obligations, but we need to remember this. There are things in Ward 3 that are on the agenda for stormwater. I try to make sure I watch it or attend as much as I can, and for any other relevant advisory boards. So let's not forget about those, please. They are important.
Thank you, Luke.
Give one. I had a citizen contacted me. That citizen's suggestion was that some of the information portion of these meetings could be taped beforehand, and people could watch that. It could be broadcast and rebroadcast. So that came from a citizen who thought that was a good idea. I think it's reasonable, so I'll pass that on.
What, you mean like the presentations?
Yes, not the presentations of awards, but so the example this person used was we spent, a half an hour talking about parking kiosks, and it was useful one-way information, and he was saying it could have been either filmed during the day with staff as a presentation, could have been filmed at a subcommittee with a subset of commissioners. If the intent is information, then there's other venues that are better than this venue, because this venue has an action component to it, and when we don't want to compromise the information like Rich says, and when we spend too much time on information, then we compromise it indirectly by affecting the action items that we take. So that was the suggestion that was passed on to me.
So what you're saying, Don, is to streamline the information, not remove it, not...
Well, I'm more of just a different venue, meaning that instead of 7 of us sitting here and listening to a half an hour presentation, film the presentation, it can run continuously at the township. It can be filmed during the day. It can be, you've all demonstrated great technical capability, and then everyone can watch it, ourselves included. And, you can be... Commissioners, here you have your homework. Here's 4 presentations that you need to watch between now and next month, that sort of thing.
So the only thing I would add to this discussion, and I'll do it within 2 minutes, Jim, is that when you have an important issue that you're deciding that has a lot of different opinions, there's no way to get around when you're making your decision, allowing people to participate and asking questions and having, robust discussion. And what ends up happening, and I'll give an example, when we decided to do the deer culling. It was a very controversial thing. And the thought was that we would work it all out ahead of time in the subcommittees and have it all sort of seamed up and bring it, and there were 3 of us on that subcommittee, and then we'd bring it to this board, and it wouldn't consume us because we would have already worked this all out. Well, when you get back in front of the 7 commissioners, a lot of the public's hearing about it for the first time. Some of the commissioners are hearing about it for the first time, and you end up rehashing the whole thing over again anyway, and you don't want to not do that because you want everybody to participate. So, it's hard because sometimes you just end up rehashing it twice instead of getting it all done in subcommittee, because not everyone's there for the subcommittee. So it's just something to be aware of, if we're going to try and push some of the stuff out of this level, it's going to come back anyway on some issues.
I think those are valid points, but I would like to consider or explore further the idea of pre-recorded technical presentations that would be available to all 7 commissioners, would be available to the public in our audience. I suppose we could run it on our television channel as well.
We just briefly talked about it. We're going to give that a try in the beginning of the year. That's great.
Good, thank you. All right, so that's what I wanted to say. Let us move now into finance and audit. John Fisher.
Actually, we have Personnel Administration up first. Item A, a little background on this. We, for the last couple of years, we've been trying to find a partner to help us sustain the Willows Mansion and the Willows Cottage, for that matter. And we've entered into preliminary discussions and relationships with potential partners. And tonight, we're going to have a new partner come up. I see some members here. Potential partners. And this group is the St. David's Nursery, and they'll be presenting a proposal tonight that would show an improvement and an operational plan for the Willows Mansion. And this is just a discussion. The township has not entered into any agreement with this group, but we have heard some potential ideas. So tonight we're going to do some public discussion of that. So I'd invite you to come up, and if you have a presentation you'd like to show us. This would be an example of a presentation we might have. And just for the sake of the meeting flow, you know, if you can keep it as quick and concise as you can, but do a good job, we appreciate it. So.
Will this be? Thank you.
Don't do a crummy job.
I'm sorry. We'll do our best. There we go. Well, thank you for allowing us to appear here this evening. We appreciate it. My name is Wade McDevitt. I'm here as a volunteer and a parent of 2 boys who are products of St. David's Nursery School. I'm here with Joanne Loreen, who has spent her entire professional career at St. David's, and the past 21 years has served in the capacity as school director. To provide a little background, St. David's Nursery School has a 47-year operating history, 0 debt, is accredited by the National Association for Education of Young Children. Only 10% of the nursery schools in the U.S. have attained this distinction. Holds a private academic school license from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, licensed by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare, and has an enrollment of approximately 200 students. Today we're here to discuss with you the possibility of leasing the Willows Mansion as a new home for St. David's Nursery School. After a fruitful and healthy 47-year relationship at our current location, our lease is expiring, and we are in a position to try to identify a new home. We have looked at a number of options out there, and unfortunately nothing has really materialized as a legitimate opportunity for us to relocate the school. It's a very challenging requirement. It's a 8,000 to 10,000 square foot requirement that needs to be accessible, but at the same time needs to have some sort of buffer from public spaces and roadways. This is a scattergram, which is a diagram plotting the past 3 years of the school's enrollment. You'll notice Willows sits in the sweet spot in the middle for all intents and purposes of that distribution of students. We're really trying to demonstrate that, you know, for 47 years, Willows has really been an amenity and a resource to the township without officially being a resource for the township. And another contributing factor as to why we believe the Willows makes the perfect location for the St. David's Nursery School. Our desire is to capitalize on the indigenous attributes of the Willows by adjusting our curriculum and enhancing our curriculum to really capitalize on nature, capitalize on your public spaces, the ponds, the streams, the woods, and the gardens. We will be able to add classes and nature lessons, take full advantage of the property's trail systems and abundance of open spaces. It'll help the school implement an agrarian-based program that partners with the community gardens to teach the children the value of the land. The land surrounding the Willows will become the extension of the classroom and provide teachers with creative outdoor activities and lessons that would enhance the curriculum of St. David's Nursery School. And we just show a few examples of items that some of the teachers have come up with, that, you know, balloon greenhouses and cloud observation and flower pressing and scavenger hunts and butterfly hunts and all of these wonderful opportunities for our children to really engage with the outdoors. We've taken some excerpts from certain publications written by noteworthy authorities in the preschool world and child psychology, and I'll just read them to you. While spending time in nature, child learns lots of basic and fundamental information about how the world, in a very effective manner, and I was cutting off fundamental work in a very effective manner. And are more to remember what they learned because. Sorry, I cut off on the presentation. Is there a way to shrink this screen? Tammy, it's oversized, so it's. Yeah. Yeah, good point. Hold on. There we go.
There you go.
All right, man. While spending time in nature, children learn lots of basic and fundamental information about how the world works in a very effective manner and are more likely to remember what they learned because it was concrete and personally meaningful. The generation of American children is the first in history to be raised without meaningful direct contact with nature. According to Rachel Love, he observes that today children learn about the Amazonian rainforest in schools, but they're unlikely to spend afternoons climbing the trees in their own neighborhoods. Love also notes that the containerization of children has caused an epidemic of childhood obesity and a growing number of children diagnosed with attention deficit disorder and depression, and believes that exposure to large open spaces outdoors is essential for a child's well-being. Access to nature during the nursery school years benefits young children's physical, intellectual, and social emotional development. Incorporating outdoor time into the curriculum of young children encourages creative play, collaborative skills, elimination of antisocial behavior, and autonomy. We also see this as an opportunity to really expand our curriculum beyond just capitalizing on nature, but also the year, where we could engage our administration to create summer programs, perhaps as amenities for the township, expanding the curriculum in addition to just what we discussed as a nature curriculum, or outdoor curriculum. Bringing St. David's Nursery School to Willows results in a thoughtful and comprehensive restoration of Willows Mansion. Obviously, for us to repurpose the facility into the appropriate setting for the school, we'd have to make some significant upgrades to the structure. We'd address fire egress issues, constructing appropriate fire exit corridors and fire exit staircases. ADA code improvements, perhaps the addition of an elevator, and other ADA issues. MEPs, mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrades to the entire facility. Fire suppression system for the facility, carpentry, roof repairs, paint and carpeting, and as well as widening the main road, the main driveway into the Willows, which would allow for two directions of traffic for school drop-off. We have had several contractors go through the property as well as architects, and we are, at this point, without being able to really do any further excavation into the facility, looking at a budget of approximately $1 million to $1.5 million. We also think another reason that our use is highly complementary and compatible with the township are our hours of operation. We know there is still a great interest in the township being able to utilize the facility for PTA meetings, other holiday events, and so on. Our hours of operation are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to approximately 2:33 p.m. After hours facility is open and available. Same thing true on weekends. We're not utilizing the facility on weekends, and the same is true for the summer months, that we're not in session June, July, and August. So we think it's highly complementary in that way. It is our heartfelt belief that relocating the St. David's Nursery School to Willows will create a truly remarkable environment for the children, their families, and the township at large. So thank you for allowing us to appear this evening.
Thank you, Wade.
And Joanne,
Thank you.
anything else to say?
Mr. McDevitt.
No, I just thank you for your consideration, for your time tonight. We've really wanted to stay in Radnor Township. That's been one of our primary goals in finding a new home for St. David's, and the Willows would be a wonderful place for us to be. So I thank you for your consideration.
Do you mind, some of the concern that we've heard initially has been, I'm over here.
Thank you.
Has been about the shared use. Can you elaborate a little bit more about your,
Sorry, programming. I was going to come back and say the programming.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we looked at with our design is the ability to program this physical space to accommodate that use. We're able to accommodate all classrooms in the upper floors, leaving the ground floor is still accessible, and create a bifurcation of the physical space where you can actually secure the upper levels and occupy the ground floor with a complementary use or another use, unrelated use, providing full access to the kitchen and all common areas. The ground floor we would utilize as a reading room, so administrative offices, and a playroom. So that space would all be available and accessible as you saw fit. As I said, we'd be able to accommodate 12 classrooms, 12 or 13 classrooms on the upper floors.
What is your current enrollment? How many students? How many
200, but 200 total students on any given day. There are 150 to 160 students.
Wow, that's big.
On site.
And is your lease at the church is expiring in August?
Correct.
So you need to have this facility by August 1st or September 1st?
By September, correct. Yes, we're hustling.
Okay, and you're raising money privately for?
We have a reasonable endowment, and we're in a position to launch another development campaign to accumulate the additional funds that we needed for the renovation. We've never had a formal development campaign in the 47-year operating history. We have a very loyal body of constituents that we're confident would step up to the cause, and we've already spoken to many of them, and there's a very enthusiastic support of our need.
So tonight, are you asking us for anything other than just consider this? Or
we're asking you to consider it and to allow us to engage in a formal negotiation to lease the property.
Okay. Well, I think as long as they're here and they've made this effort, we ought to talk about this.
So, yeah, I think we need to kind of pare this down to the basics first. And this is a question for John Rice. I know under the Deed and Donated Act, we have a lot of constraints on what we can do with public lands. We've discussed the Willows, renting the Willows many times now. So the only question I have right now is, John, do you believe with this potential partner that we would be able to enter into a lease as the way it's been presented without going
for court approval.
For court approval.
Yeah, I mean, there's been similar activities in that building, I think, over the years. And you're not selling it. It would be some number of year lease, puts it to a productive use. But you're not going to subdivide it. I don't think you're adding on to the building at all.
We're not.
I mean, I'm just getting some of this information for the first time tonight, but I think you'd be okay with the restrictions that are on that property. It's been used for, as I understand it, maybe some camps and things like that over the years. So there's been other users in there. I don't see a prohibition with moving forward with this.
Okay, so to that end, what I would suggest, and this is just, we're going to hear from everyone, I'm sure, on this. I would suggest that you come back to the board with a formal proposal, with timelines, maybe a little more detail around what would be improved in the building, and a plan of execution from your standpoint, because there is funding component to this. And then at the same time, maybe start drafting some lease template. Doesn't have to be that detailed at first, but just the core pieces of that lease. Because I think this board will need to know a lot more detail before they can grant approval. And the sooner you get those pieces moving, the sooner this board and the public can see that and then start to weigh in on it. But right now we have a big concept, and it's a good concept. It's compatible with, in my opinion, it's compatible with the Willows. The nice part about it, in my opinion, is that instead of trying to change the structure and enlarge the structure, we're just going to maintain the structure, and that's really what we always wanted. It also doesn't seem to have a huge impact in terms of use. Obviously, you will have the children being dropped off in the morning and picked up in the daytime, but I would think that the building would have shared use on nights, weekends, and would have an opportunity for public use, which was really important ever since we began discussing this. So to me, this seems to be a really good potential solution. The devil will be in the details, certainly, but we need some more details. And really, I think at this point, the board should weigh in on this. But coming back to us with a written, formal proposal, the detail of the plan, the funding mechanism, the timelines, and then lease. And we may have a draft lease that our solicitor can present to you, but it's, the leases that we've had to date concerned venue-type operations rather than a school. So I think we'd have to look at, what that school component would look like. So that's my point.
And Bob, I think we need to schedule a subcommittee of the Parks and Rec subcommittee as soon as possible to solicit input from the public. I've received several phone calls concerning things such as traffic. People didn't understand whether that meant the park would still be accessible. There was a concern about you mentioned the kids being out in the park and how that would work, and then also concerns regarding the security of the children. But I think this is not a little thing that we're considering here, and we really do need to give the public an adequate opportunity to give us input.
Absolutely. We appreciate that.
So my 2 cents. So open-minded to it, generally troubled by using government assets and using them for private enterprise. That line is often murky, so I'll be open to it. I voted against the last 2 attempts to do this because I felt the uses were very problematic. This use is considerably less problematic, so and it might not get better than this use. So that's working in your favor, but I still have to decide if it's enough. There's enough in it for me. Traffic and use of the park, and then we have to make sure that the money is right. I don't know how we do that, but we can't subsidize your activity no matter how honorable it is. So we have to figure out what the right price is.
And we're not expecting any subsidy
Yes.
on the development of it nor the lease.
So looking at what we get, I think we get the likelihood of saving the building. We probably get some cash, and we have to balance that against the compromise of the park. So for me, I don't think we're losing a park. In the last one, I used the expression losing a park, the last 2 predecessors that were here, because I thought that was a very, very problematic use. This one is more of a compromise, so it's a stronger proposal, in my opinion, than the previous 2 that were here. But one thing that's a little different is in some of the partnerships, like there's a fine line between public-private partnership and industry capture. They're just depending upon when you choose to make the term. And so using something like what we did on Memorial Field, the use didn't change. This I do see as a use change, which complicates it a little more. And then lastly, I think you've got some real schedule difficulties, meaning I know you're on a very rapid schedule, but I'm not. So consequently, if your schedule doesn't match our schedule, I'm not going to be terribly moved by that. I'm going to be inclined to follow the schedule that we need to follow. So my idea for going forward, similar to what some of the other commissioners said, one, you got to get a sense from us whether this is worth your effort. My sense is before they come back with the details, they need to come back with more of the concepts, meaning a 2-page concept letter, and we can have those subcommittee meetings that we talked about during that time, and then we make a vote yes or no on the concept, and then there's a subsequent meeting where they come back with the details. So that's how I would proceed. If you want to skip 2 and go right to 3, then that's just kind of at you run a little risk, because I don't know how it would turn out when you got to the vote.
In response to your point about losing a park, as in any given year, we've done the research. 45 to 75% of our student body are residents of the township. So the children that are utilizing this park, for the most part, are residents of the township. So we think we're activating it and enhancing what the ultimate intent was of the park, which was create public space for the community.
So I would say, I'm sorry to let go of the idea of an event space there. We worked 3 years on that, I think, maybe even 4 years we've been trying to make that happen. And I think we can now safely say that is just not going to happen. So it's time to move on, and this opportunity is in front of us. And I've been thinking about it for a month or 2 now, and it may work. This may work. It's the thing that makes me the most optimistic about it is this sharing arrangement, which may sound a little awkward to some. This is an organization that is coming from a very similar sharing arrangement, an organization that was abutted by 2 public parks and was the tenant with a landlord who used the building when they weren't using it. Same thing. So on Sunday, during church on Sundays, it was all the church using it. On the weeknights, they were all using it. So it's an organization that has a nice history of being able to actually share a space and make it work. And in my opinion, this really only works if it's a shared space. This is a shared asset. It's not St. David's Nursery School public stay out. That's not going to work. So I'm very interested in hearing the details. I think the sooner we get the details, the sooner we hear whether this is going to work. So, I mean, I would ask that we go right away, get some details down on paper, and see if it's satisfying to us and to our public. Just so I can get it out there, the details I really care about are the public, the community use. You've heard this before, but I'm saying this for the benefit of everyone else, which is the community use that we're used to, not the wedding use, not the rental use, the coach's appreciation dinner, the baseball team's pancake breakfast that's held there, the school dance, the yearbook signing for the seniors to go over there, all of our programming needs, which is, Santa's breakfast and all of that. All of those things will still happen, and hopefully at no charge, which has been our history. So that any group that is in our community, this is an asset, just like the Windsor room in our library. If you I forget what the number is, but if you're 70% or 90% Radnor residents, you get to use it for free. So I would view it like that on your off hours. So if we can get that kind of guarantee in our contract, that goes a long way with me, and I think it would go a long way with our public. I agree with Don, it has to work for us. Financially, it has to be market rate. We have to make sure that that's all up and up. And then finally, there's a perception item that we really need to address from the get-go, and that is, there are probably 50 people that pay attention to these meetings and to what's really going on, or maybe 100. Everyone else has no idea that this would be going on, this change would be happening. All of a sudden, they'd show up at the park, and there would be St. David's Preschool, and they'd be like, oh no, St. David's Preschool took over our park. We would have to be very careful about the signage, that it is very clear to our public. This is the Willows Park. We have a partner who we share this building with, and the signage would reflect that public, you are welcome here in these hours. And I think that would go a long way, so that everyone knows it's still a public park, it's still our park, these are our neighbors and our partners. Getting all that into a document and written down gets us a long way. So that's my opinion.
I just have just a couple of concerns. I'm generally supportive of the idea and agree that there's a lot of attractive components. I have some concern about 200 preschool kids in a public park.
It's 140 to 160
All right, 140 to 160.
on a given day.
Stand corrected.
Yes.
But still, public, Elaine just said it, public needs to be allowed to be there, so I have some concern about the security.
So, and they will considering it's a school, obviously we're extraordinarily sensitive about security as well. It's a contained and controlled environment. It's not a free-for-all where the 140 kids are running freely across the fields. It's an environment where they're supervised closely and monitored closely and contained. It's an organized effort. It's not, as I said, it's not random. It's obviously, the most important thing to us is preserving, maintaining that level of safety of our children. And as someone who has a son there, I can speak to that as well.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah, so it will be contained, and furthermore, it's somewhat contained to the upper hill, to the area immediately surrounding the mansion, except for those explorations that we described earlier, which would be done in a very organized and formatted way.
And then secondly, my only concern is that if this is a good idea, that we ought to open it up so that some other people might be interested in it. We have similar nursery schools at Christ Church, at St. Martin's, and I'm sure there's others. So I guess if it's a good enough idea to do, maybe it should be opened up to some others as well, so that, maybe ultimately you're the ones who have the best proposal, but I kind of, not that I have any objections to anything you've provided, but again, if it's a good enough idea to go forward with it, maybe some others might be interested as well, and we should open it up. That's my other concern.
How, if they were going to spend $1.5 million to outfit the facility, how could they be asked to let Christ Church come in or Central Nursery
I think
School
what
come
Rich
in?
is saying, though, when we decided that we would find a partner to run it as a venue, we did put it out for public. We kind of put out a RFQ, right? So in this case, we might want to do that, but you are probably the only applicant we will receive. But just to satisfy...
I don't know of any other applicants that have 140 or 150 kids.
Yeah, and just to satisfy that requirement of being fair, we may, as part of this, at some point publish that as a, that the Willows Mansion is available for this type of a use. If you're interested, please submit your proposal. And in the meantime, you'll have your proposal ready. And, everyone can submit proposals. So I think
and if nobody else submits anything, but
then we're
seems
done.
to me, I don't know, maybe this board will say, no, we don't need to do it, we don't have to. With all public bids, you always have certain exceptions. You don't have to publicly bid everything. But I'm not sure if that would be applicable in this instance or not.
Well, I would support doing that only so that 6 months from now, someone doesn't complain that we didn't do that. So I don't see any harm in it. I think it's compatible with what's going on here. So I would suggest at this point, Luke, do you want to make some comments?
Yeah, quickly. We're going on and on, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Why aren't you staying at your current location? You may have said that. I may have missed it. I'm sorry, but why?
The lease is expiring, and we've been there for 47 years, and the church, has other plans for the space potentially. But after 47 years, we certainly appreciate it's their prerogative to use, their real estate as they see fit, and they've been an incredible partner of ours. So we're very supportive of whatever they plan on.
Okay.
But we have no lease. Our lease is expiring without options.
And they decided not to renew it.
Correct. Well, there's no renewal. We didn't have an option. A lease expires without end of term.
Okay, so they said, we're done.
They have other plans for the property, or they like the ability to have their own plans and create their own environment. The church is, extraordinarily successful. And,
okay. All right. And the other thing is we're going to have, so this is going to mean 100 cars or so at 9 a.m. in the park? I mean, is that what we're talking about?
Monday through Friday?
No,
Is this Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday. On average, we have about 110 cars for drop-off. The afternoon pickup is staggered over 3 sessions, and the average session is 35 to 40 cars coming over a 2.5-hour period of time. We're receptive, or we're willing to consider the idea of also staggering our morning drop-offs to accomplish the same thing we accomplished in the afternoon, where it would be 35 to 40 cars at a time with an hour or half-hour break between those periods of time. The typical queuing process for us in our current location is 20 minutes. For all cars, 110 cars are processed at a 5 cars at a time curve, 4 to 5 cars at a time. It's a 20 to 25 minute total process. We don't anticipate being that disruptive or disruptive at all. But as I said, we're receptive to the concept of staggering the drop-offs. We already staggered the pickup, so it's 35 to 40 cars per session.
Okay, so at this point,
yeah,
at this point, I just want to. I'm going to make a motion, and this is a pretty light one, just to allow administration to continue discussing this with you offline. But what I'm going to ask is that you come back to the Board of Commissioners with a formal written proposal that will be made public, and the board will, and I would imagine by January, have this discussion in public, and then potentially vote on a contract. Okay.
Would you include a proposed lease in that?
Yeah, the lease. So yeah, please, you can work with, ask John Rice for a copy of an existing lease that we had executed or introduced.
Absolutely.
Well, do we have a majority that wants to do an RFP? Because that we should start now too, if we're going to.
Yeah, and so I'll move to have staff prepare an RFP.
Can I ask before you?
Sure.
Is that a legal requirement, John Rice, do you think?
No.
We could choose this, what would be the exception to us not putting out this to bid?
Well, I mean, when you did Memorial Field, there was no RFP.
Right.
You had somebody that wanted to use the property that was going to continue a similar type of use, and you negotiated, entered into a lease. The Willows Mansion, the event center, the catering, that was a sort of more of a commercial operation. You put out an RFQ.
Mm-hmm.
So on this, there's nothing that requires you to put out an RFQ on the lease. If you were selling it, you'd have to do something. You'd have to publicly bid it out.
If I can, Mr. President, add my 2 cents. And I know I can see everybody anxiously awaiting my words here. I know when I started 5.5 years ago, this was one that sat kind of on the bullseye that this was a problematic facility here. We tried got to be almost 3.5, 4 years ago, we went down this road with the process with RFPs, and the only way we're going to do this is that, and the only vendors that stayed with us were ones where they were asking us to either back up their financing or commit some kind of dollars for us, which it was very clear the board was not interested in doing any of that. We have now an opportunity where someone's looking at using their dollars to kind of do this, and I hear kind of where the board's at. They're still questioning if this is the right use, what the impact of the park is and that. And I know this group, the school, is looking at a timeline. I'm not sure with the process that we go through and the vetting of this, another round of RFPs, I don't think we're ever going to meet their timeline, realistically, to hit where you're at. I'm not sure if the board, because I look at Memorial Field, took us about 9 months to be able to get through on that one. Realistically, I'm not sure we're going to hit within your time frame, unfortunately.
I don't think we are either.
I mean, I just don't think, to be fair to the school, I don't think we're going to hit your time frame to be able to accommodate where you're at.
So my motion will be just to have, to direct staff to continue negotiating, discussing, and then working with you constructively to come back to the board with a proposal.
But the other part, John, is like with an RFP, I'm not sure what we look for, because unless the township's going to invest a lot of money into that building, which I'm not sure how we invest anymore because the building continues to fall further and further in disrepair. We're going to be looking at a roof now going into that building because it's leaking. There's other structural issues. So at some point, even if we decided to go back to an event
Don't
center.
scare them away, Bob.
Oh, I'm not. But I mean, like an event center, you're almost going to be better off spending the dollars.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
Can I just say that Bob brings up a very good point, that we did do a RFP or RFQ process that was massive. It was anything. Anybody come with us to any idea. We got residential development, we got nobody came forward with a school. So in a sense, we have already put out an RFQ or RFP, and this use did not come up. So if there was a nursery school out there, they didn't.
I'm not inclined to have a request for
I'm willing
proposals.
to forego that. If I'm willing to forego.
There's no legal requirement for it. We'll certainly publicize the fact that we have a very interested organization that wants to occupy it. Nobody's beating down the door to use the Willows for anything else. So I'm inclined to move ahead, and I'd like John Fisher's motion. And does anybody want to second it?
Second it, but not including the direction with an RFP.
The motion is just to direct staff to constructively work with the applicant.
Right.
So I think that's step 3, and we ought to go to step 2, which is to open this up, hear from the public, go through that process that John Nagel identified. So we do this all the time. We jump into the particular. We go 1, 3. And my opinion is we should go 1, 2, 3.
Well, Don, the point here is we need more detail. The detail comes from the partner.
We just don't need detail now. That schedule is being driven by their schedule, not our schedule.
I understand. But we want this partner to come back to us with a proposal, a written proposal with detail. And that's going to further the discussion. You can't have a discussion without the detail. So the public's not going to be able to decide whether this is good for them or not until the details presented. So I disagree with that comment.
I'm inclined to go along with your approach, John Fisher. All right, is there any other comment, Luke?
I remember Bob brought up a rather drastic remedy a year or two ago, and I don't know if I disagree with that or agree with that necessarily. I'd like to see a different direction almost completely. Nothing against the nursery school, but something that complements the park and complements the use of the park, and if that involves altering the mansion, I'd be open to it. So that's my thought on this.
Yeah. And we feel a great deal of deference to the mansion. I'd like to preserve it.
My only other comment is if anyone in the public, as you said, Jim, obviously if St. David's Nursery School is interested, then we make that public, and other people should be able to hear about that if they want to without a formal RFP process. We're making it aware right now. If somebody's got an idea, I guess now's, timing's everything in most of life. So I think that publicizing it that's kind of the point. and offering it. But I don't think that anybody who had this use would have competed with catering and subdivision, right? So not sure that open process really would have brought out this use, but.
Well, we got music schools, and remember we had a
But
music
we had a
school.
sizable ask. We asked a lot in that proposal. So I think we priced out activities like this. So that's everything you're saying is accurate, but I do believe we priced out activities like this.
I think we have a motion and a second. Is there anybody in the, besides Bob, who's already spoken, anybody on our management that wants to say anything? Is there anybody in the audience that wants to comment at this point? Oh, yes. Katrina, hi.
Hi there, how are you? I'm Katrina Ogilvy. I'm at 222 Orchard Way in Wayne. And I love St. David's Nursery School. I had 3 children that went through the nursery school. I'm very fond of it. And I'm also very fond of the Willows Park as a public facility. I'm there every day in the morning. I see a lane there. I park in the back lot, and I walk my dogs in the Skunk Hollow, in the woods. And I'm concerned about taking a public facility and really impacting our use as the public. There's some great ideas here. The shared use, the mansion needs work, obviously. However, I hope that this is a very aggressive timeline. I don't know. I hope that you will give it great scrutiny as to what the impact is, rather than trying to just push this along. I spent this morning, I know at St. David's there was a special day. It was a Christmas concert, and I sat in the Ditmar parking lot just counting cars. Now, this was a special day, but at 8:15 when I arrived, there were 35 cars in the lot. I assume that was staff. By 9:25 when I left, the parking lot was jammed, more than 50 cars. There was a car on the street on Valley Forge Road, and the Ditmar parking lot was full. And that was 9:25. And there were also 90 cars that went through and exited, did the loop through and exited. That is a special day, but I use the park between 7:30 and 9 o'clock every day. And should you decide this is what is the best use for the park, at the very least, I hope you designate some parking spaces for the public to use. I'm just, this is the jewel of Radnor Township, and I know we want to save the mansion. That's a great idea, but at what cost? There are other ways to use the park and keep it a real public facility. So I'm probably jumping the gun because obviously we have no details, but I just happened to spend the time this morning, so I'd like to give you the numbers. So thank you. And thank you for
Katrina.
all you do, really. I know you're trying to be as conscientious as possible in the use of this park.
Thank you for coming. All right. Is there anybody else in the audience?
Radnor resident, I'm also.
Okay.
I'm a member of the board of St. David's. And I would just like
your
to say.
Your name.
Maggie McWilliams.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to say that I would be fully supportive of the school using the Willows. I grew up in Radnor. I've been here my whole life. And I mean, it's just a beautiful haven for children. And I can't imagine a better place for the school. And I can't imagine a better usage for it. So I just want to say I support it.
Thank you, Ms. McWilliams.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience?
My name's Mukund Prabhu. I reside at 116 Calvaries within the township. I love your proposal for everything it opens up as possibilities. I'm not sure I would agree with something to be there or not. That's not my call. But I do want to say this. Jumping from 1 to 3, as discussed earlier, is premature. Because if I were going to do a $1.5 million rehab on my house, I doubt I could get that done by August. So I think just number 2, just our zoning change is going to be required. What is the timeline from any contractor who's proposing to do this by that time? It may make sense for your school to find another place for the next 1 to 3 years and do it right. But I think it's a waste of the township's time, potentially staff's time, and your organization's very real interest to be considering something like this if it's just not possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
No, I think it's aggressive. It is possible, but he's right. It's not likely. So it is possible, though.
No, we've had several contractors walk through that are extraordinarily capable and competent, and we could do it in 2.5 to 4 month timeline. The longest lead time of any item in that timeline is the elevator cab if we need an elevator. Otherwise, most of the work can be completed in probably approximately 3 months.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for one example, I think you look at the Agnes Irwin in the township, what we did at Memorial Field. I think that one came out as a tremendous opportunity that benefited both the township and Agnes Irwin. In the long term, I think helped out tremendously. But also, too, just to comment, and I think to draw a comparison when you look at the school and compared to the venue when the township ran it, the Willows, I guess just from my opinion, being down at the Willows at various times, I think I'd almost look at the school as a good benefit there, because knowing that the first year I was here, we had complaints from residents about loud noise. And 2 is I think I'd rather have kids there during the day between a 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. than having loud folks and the introduction of alcohol in the evening too, and those individuals driving back and forth. And I think the impact is night and day difference between those two event activities that take place, but also too, it's a public park as well. And I think that these 2 uses probably would be the best match between the public, and also too, I think also be interesting too, I know we heard comments between dogs and the students and that, and between the activities of the garden, and I don't think there would be much conflict between the 2, between residents using the trails, between using the park, because I'm not sure if many times the kids are going to be out. I would say based on your presentation of the Parks Board and their feedback too, I think there's a lot of dynamics there that I think could benefit. But again too, is I understand the concept of preserving the mansion and the building itself, which is interesting in its own. But that building is definitely in serious need of repair, and there's significant dollars that need to go into it. Not that I'm trying to scare you off again, but it's something, though, that I think is part of this. The flip side of this is there's some serious decisions that have to be made by the board here soon. Thanks.
Just ask one quick last question. Is there any possibility of a 6-month extension in your current location?
Probably not.
No?
No.
And I guess, John, if you recall, with Memorial Field, there was some opposition, and we did face a lawsuit. Some of my constituents were actually against that. So is that something that we would, well, number one, that we had a lawsuit at Memorial, are we thinking that could happen again here? And then second, I thought we had a rule about private use of public facilities. We had, we're comfortable with that. We don't fall into that. We had an issue with it. You're not allowed to have
that was raised
for profit.
It was raised in the Memorial Field plus there was a recorded declaration, a deed restriction that was placed on that property. But if it was, the court decided that your constituents were wrong. And
I think they would
found that it was a continuation of a similar type of use, that it was used in a certain way, and I would view this as the same way. Would somebody challenge it? It's always possible.
Okay, I'd like to move ahead, please. So we have a motion and a second. And does anybody want to repeat the motion in case we are not certain what we're voting on? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
And it passes 5-2. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Next up, item B is the settlement agreement between Van Rossum and the Township. I'll move to approve the settlement agreement.
We can call her Maya, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was, yeah.
I'm just kidding around.
Maya Van
Maya
Rossum,
Van Rossum.
versus the Township.
Did you move it?
I just moved it.
Is
Yeah.
there a second?
Second.
All right. All right. Do you want to explain what this
I'll
is
just
all about?
explain. This is an agreement that will address some of the concerns about the right-to-know requests that were submitted by Maya Van Rossum and the response of the Township. This agreement just clarifies some of those details and, in essence, will help us move ahead. So I don't want to get into all the detail, but it is in the it is on the website.
Right.
It's in detail.
I mean,
and John, if you want to make a comment,
I can do a 3-minute or 2-minute explanation. There were 3 right-to-know requests. One is currently on appeal to Delaware County. The other 2 are at the Office of Open Records. They were the same type of requests for different time periods, and it was likely that there would be more of the similar type of requests. So we met, and Melissa Kahn, who's your right-to-know officer, spends a lot of time. As the board knows, the township receives, I think, around 600 right-to-know requests a year. So we were trying to, with Maya, come up with a protocol to deal with communications on the Stormwater Management Committee. This spells out how the communications will occur, what types of communications are going to be subject to disclosure, and some time period. So it gives Maya Van Rossum and the Township and Melissa Kahn at least some direction in terms of how we're going to deal with future requests. So this will resolve the County Court Appeal and the other 2 Open Records Office pending appeals.
all right. Thanks, John.
All right, and the rationale here is that it's in the best interest of the township to settle this because it obviates the continued filing of requests for information from Ms. Van Rossum.
Well, it'll clarify what the procedure is going to be, and it will eliminate, hopefully, multiple appeals to Delaware County Court. We have some sort of standards in here as to what the public records are, what they are not, and there's some presumptions in terms of some of those communications. I mean, if there's other exceptions that are appropriate, the township's not giving up any ability to not disclose, but we're trying to go beyond what might be the technical exceptions in the right to know. Township can always disclose more than what is required, and that's what we're doing here.
All right, thank you, John. Does any commissioner have a comment on this?
Yeah, President, if I can, I just wanted to make sure that this settlement agreement protected these volunteers and didn't expose them to any type of liability, didn't impose onerous obligations upon them, and I think they are protected. I think the process is streamlined, so in that respect, I think it's a good agreement.
That's a good point. Thank you for raising it. Yeah, I think we have apprised the members of the Stormwater Committee, I believe, about the terms of the settlement.
I met with them last Thursday in executive session.
And they're all okay with the terms?
They have already started to do some of this. They have copies of this. I think Steve has discussed this with the members, and there's no objections to this going forward. I think it simplifies what they're doing and the work they're doing on that committee. So they're on board with it, Luke.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is problematic for me, not for what Maya Van Rossum is doing here in the settlement. the issue is that we created our own problems here with the Stormwater Committee. And we heard from some of our other commissioners and from the administration as well about revising this, so I call it the rain tax committee. But I think that the rain tax is misplaced, and this committee is doomed to failure. It's not the people's fault who are on the board that we have problems with this, but when we try to delegate responsibilities for collecting taxes and spending tax money to a board, that we're going to have problems, and people will throw their heads up and their heads will explode. Have to duct tape people's heads together from exploding when I say that. But this is really much closer to a tax than it is to any type of a fee. And we have problems with right to know because you have private people trying to implement a government program. And there's always going to be a problem with it. And we should eliminate the entire rain tax as well as the committee and go back to properly administrating the expenditures of the township.
Okay, are there any other commissioners that want to say anything? Is there anybody in the audience that wants to say anything? All right, we have a motion to approve the settlement, and it's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And it passes 7-0.
That's it under Personnel Administration. I'll move right into Finance and Audit. I'll move Ordinance 2015-20. This is the adoption of the final comprehensive budget for 2016, which includes appropriations for 2016, the 5-year capital plan, and the 5-year forecast, and establishing the township real estate tax and sanitary sewer rates. I apologize because I normally state those. Give me 1 second here. Maybe I won't.
$5.97 for 1,000 gallons.
Yeah, I don't have that open. Anyway, there's my motion. You can just go. Actually, let me just state the number. The millage rate will be 3.9228 mils, and the sewer rent will be 5.90, $5.90 per 1,000 gallons. Thanks, Jim.
Does that reflect an increase in the sewer fee? I've forgotten.
No change in the sewer rate.
And it is a 4% increase in the millage for the ad valorem.
Wait, hold on. We have a motion on the table. Was that second?
Yes, I seconded
Okay.
it.
Yeah, so I'll just go into the detail of that. The existing millage rate is 3.7511 mils. This is a 0.1717 millage increase to a total of 3.9228 mils. And again, if you're not familiar with what a mill is, this is $3.92 per $1,000 of assessed value of your home. That's, again, $3.92.28 cents per $1,000 of assessment on your home.
I think it's been moved and seconded. Do you want to, let's go down the row.
Oh,
I believe Bill White has a presentation.
yeah. Mr. Chairman, if I may, or
Sorry, Bill.
if I could.
I was trying to vote on it right now. So.
I've asked Bill to kind of step through one more time, a quick overview here of the budget, where we've come to. So, Bill, I'm going to ask you to kind of go through this quick presentation that he's put together here, as kind of summarize and wrap this whole thing up. So,
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. The presentation's a really brief one. It's we do this annually with an all-staff meeting. So we had an all-staff meeting last week, and the manager asked me to prepare a summary of the budget as it was introduced. So this is a condensed version. We started by talking about where we are with 2015. We've spent some time over the last 2 months discussing this as part of the budget, that for 15, we had initially adopted a budget that had excess revenues of about $690,000 based on the performance of our Act 511, as well as it's all other, but the primary source in there is the building permits and the development funds coming by way of the development activity have done a lot better. we take a look at on the so 1.3 million in additional revenue this year that we weren't counting on or anticipating, offset by about 370,000 of additional expenses, most of which in operating. The lion's share of that sum there is the Papel visit, which was a little over 100,000, and then the snow and ice budget from the January through March, which was about 250 to 300,000, and then we've had some additional one-time type of expenses. So that's what is driving that number there. But in total, we're anticipating ending 15 with about 930,000 of additional funds, more than what we're anticipating. So 1.6 is what that number is as of now, or the end of November. So jumping forward to 2016, comparing that to 15, the real estate adjustment is geared towards the millage rate that we just discussed. The Act 511, most of the proceeds that we're realizing in 15 beyond what we are anticipating were audit and one-time in nature type of revenues. Same with the development. So you see both of those returning back to more normal growth. On the expense side, the wage, we had talked about this, I think, at the last, or when this ordinance was introduced. The 600,000 is almost entirely made up of filling the 4 vacant police positions that were vacant much or all of this year. Actually, 3 of those positions were vacant all this year. We've since toward the end of the year have another vacancy to be filled. So that's most of the 605,000. The balance is the cost of living increases for all the full-time and part-time staff. The payroll liabilities and benefits, 200,000 of that 416 or 417 is the incremental increase in the OPEB funding plan. So without that, that's roughly a 2% increase over in the payroll liabilities and benefits category. Operating, again, we're not anticipating having another Papel visit. So those dollars are out next year, as well as returning the snow and ice budget back to, I'll say normal, but I'm not sure what that is, since it's 70 degrees in December. And then the other increases are the items that we've talked about over the last 2 months. So we take a look at the forecast. These are the modified numbers as they're included in the budget, highlighting initially that for 16, if the Villanova development income comes in as part of their the approved project, we'd anticipate a large excess in 16, followed by years of deficits, and then as a result of debt service falling off in the latter years of the forecast, the trend reversing and becoming positive or net revenue again. Then we're also taking a look at our ending general fund balance versus the target fund balance established by the policy and identifying compliance there. So let me turn off. There we go. So real quickly, you can see that with the large net revenue in 16 and then years where we're closer to zero, again, depending on certain types of capital activity and the debt service falling off, roughly 400,000 to 500,000 in 2019 or 2020. And then in terms of fund balance target excess, so the baseline for this graph is meeting the target fund balance, the requirement. Everything above that would be considered excess revenue. So we take a look at the township's financial picture. We look at net position as well as general fund balance. The net position of the township over the last 10 years has shown significant improvement, especially in the last 5. Most of that is a result of the township setting aside assets to offset liabilities that were causing a greater negative net position, having that be positive. And then when we take a look at the general fund balance, the improvements there, again, over the last 5 years have been pretty dramatic. Most of the improvement here was intentional in that we increased the fund balance policy with the additional 10% to make up for the fact that one of the primary reasons that the township is in better financial position is because of the Act 511 revenues, which are also very volatile.
Well, I'm sorry, do you want questions at the end, or does that figure on the left, OPEB is not reported now, but in next year when you show us that figure, it's going to have OPEB, and it's going to look considerably different.
Yeah, there's a portion of OPEB that is in net position, but right now it's in the footnote disclosure exactly what portion of OPEB is in there, and it's not the full amount of the unfunded liability. With the new GASB, that will impact this number. But keep in mind that if we were to apply that GASB pronouncement back through the 10 years, all the numbers would move in the same direction accordingly.
But when we include OPEB, likely 13 won't be I'm not even, net position is just revenues versus expenses. Is that?
Oh, it's,
or is it?
It's more retained earnings. It's more like a balance sheet bottom line than it is operating bottom line.
So that's showing an inflection point. When we include OPEB, that's not going. The whole thing is going to drop down considerably, and 13 and 14 are likely to be negative numbers again.
They will almost certainly be negative, yes. But the point is that the net position has improved from negative 10 million. From negative 10 million to roughly 4 million.
And I guess
that same improvement will be.
Yeah, I guess my takeaway from that is slightly different than yours. My takeaway is that the net improvement is significant if it's measured relative. If it's measured positive versus negative, it's considerably less significant because it's still going to likely be a large negative number.
That is. Yeah, that's accurate. I mean.
But Don, can we recognize that we're $14 million further ahead than we were?
I love to recognize it, but it's important to also, I mean, you can do a lot of things with numbers. And when this flips from negative to positive, we see that as a reason to celebrate, but it's really not a reason. That in and of itself is not a celebration because all that, next year, this same conversation, that whole bar is going to come down considerably.
Yeah, except that the thing to be positive about is the fact that it's turned upside down. It has moved from significantly negative to positive. So that's what we're talking about, improved net position. If we were to apply the GASB and include the OPEB liability all the way back to 2005, that same improvement would occur. It would all be negative. I'm not disagreeing. But the improvement would still be there.
It would be very, very negative to less negative as opposed to negative to positive. That's all.
True. Yeah, there's no discounting the fact that that liability exists. And we've actually included in the last 2 years of our CAFR in the footnote a pro forma of what the net position would have been had we implemented that year to reflect those numbers. So it's actually, we've reported pro forma or outside of what GASB mandated as a means to kind of set the table for what it was going to look like in the future. So when we talk about debt load, we've had significant conversations about where we're at in terms of debt. And this looked a lot better with the lights off, but the numbers across the bottom represent the electoral debt. And obviously in 14, we see the jump up as a result of the borrowing for our Drossen. Then we also identified since we hit the peak in 07 in terms of our non-electoral debt, there was a steady decline, which has been offset recently with the result of issuing the swap termination, which was roughly about $4 million in new borrowing. But in the long run, that will end up saving the township significantly more. And that's actually something CARFAC discussed reporting on, kind of coming back to the board to say, look, had we not done that, this is what that would look like today. And then in 15 and 16, we have the two borrowings that were approved under the ordinance that was adopted at the end of October, which include $2.5 million for the library and then the borrowing for the parks and trails. So one of the aspects, and this was also in Carfax report, was the legal debt margin. And what the legal debt margin calculation is it's a ratio of the total outstanding non-electoral debt to the township's average 3-year revenue. And this is included in our annual reports in the statistical section. So again, we have the data going back. We show 10 years in the CAFR, but we have it going back even further. That's represented by the blue line. So what you can see, and it mirrors what was going on from '07. As the township's debt load decreased, the ratio improved. And then it comes back up as a result of the new issuances. Also helping that is the debt to revenue, is that the township's revenue has been going up, which also helps drive that percentage down, which means we have the township's capacity for borrowing is theoretically greater. In doing the discussion, or having the discussion with Carfax, since the legal calculation, and I say legal because it's part of the State Unit Debt Act, Carfax wanted to see the numbers assuming full debt load, which includes electoral and non-electoral. So that's what's represented by the red and eventually the green line. And then in 2013, we wanted to remove the $8 million settlement from our revenue picture, being that it was so significant and it was one-time in nature. What did that look like? So that's what the red line represents. Again,
Bill, quick question again.
Sure.
That line at 16, it would trail off incrementally if it was projected unless we incur new debt?
Yeah, as long as
there's no projection there, but we can reasonably assume that it will trail off unless we incur, because each year we pay down some of the debt. Is that how that's calculated?
Well, in combination with revenues increasing, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, without the
so the only thing that could make it go up would be revenues going down.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the last item, and I don't usually, every year I always address this with the staff because it gets so much discussion in these meetings, and it's something that they are obviously concerned with or in tune with. So this graph represents what the township's annual pension expense, or MMO, has done since 2010. And we've spent a lot of time in these meetings talking about these numbers and why they have gone up so significantly. But when you take a look at what's happened on the other side, so this is our funding ratio, the pension plan's funding ratio. The blue represented is the police, and the yellow is the civilian. So the period in which the MMO is represented is out here. Obviously, this funding ratio picture goes all the way back to '91, a much larger window of time. But you could see that in the late '90s, early 2000s, the plans were in much better financial condition. Then, as a result of many of the things that we've talked about, poor market returns as a result of the economy, as well as mismatch benefit to funding assumptions, the funding ratios pretty steeply declined. Funding the additional, or correcting the assumptions and putting excess dollars into the pension plan we can start to see an improved funding ratio. So we're still in the 70% range, which is by the state standards, I think, distress level 2. But we're starting to see the benefits of correctly funding the assumptions. I'll be careful how I say that. The township always paid its MMO, but correctly funding the assumptions, as well as putting the additional, the excess fund balances and the portions out of the $8 million into the pension plan, we could see an improvement in the funding ratio. And what that means over time is that the closer we get to fully funded status, or the green 100% bar, that'll have a significant improvement on the MMO, because as you'll recall, a significant portion of our MMO now is paying the amortized piece of the unfunded liability. So if we pay down the unfunded liability, the MMO comes down. And that's what we've been talking about as the goal. So again, went 6 minutes longer than I wanted to, so I apologize.
Bill, that was well done.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, we have the lights back on. Thank you. All right, I think we have a motion and a second, and it's time to go down the row here to see who wants to say what about the ordinance 2015-20. Luke?
First off, I don't know what other townships do, but Bill, 200 pages here, double-sided. This is fantastic, so thank you and the Finance Department for putting that together. That's fantastic, and thank you for that presentation. With regard to the budget, you know, as I said last time, I think the parks and trails are good. I was on the Parks and Rec Board that analyzed these things. I think the library, improving the library, making it more e-friendly, making it more inviting to students, modernizing it, I think these are all good things. Last time my frustration was that we have a fire department that's operating at a deficit. We weren't overly inclined to help them out. I think John Fisher's right. I think we're going to have to seriously consider that moving forward. We just had, Gladwin just had one burn up, I think, that probably cost $1 million or something. That's something we're gonna have to get involved in too. So I worry about the priorities a little bit with that. So no one wants to see a tax increase. I do think the projects are good, but I think that we have a fundamental need there that we need to think about, and it's hard for me to reconcile that along with taking out this bond issuance when we have that fundamental issue there. So those are my thoughts. But again, to the Finance Department, this is great. I mean, I've read through this, and these numbers are crunched about 8 different ways, and they all add up. So I think in terms of the substantive budget, the Finance Department did a great job with this, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, and the residents should be appreciative of this as well.
If I could, while we're jumping to the next commission, just thank you very much for those kind comments. I can't take all the credit. It is all of the departments working together to put it together. So it's not just finance, it's everybody. So the other departments deserve a lot of the credit as well.
John Nagel?
Well, actually, to follow up on that, when I first took office, my first night that I was sworn in, I had to vote on a budget. That budget was probably about 30 pages. And I think 20 of those pages were the assumptions. So this is certainly, the past couple of years have been a joy, and I like numbers, so it's been fun going through there. Bob, I was actually kind of surprised that I didn't see any staff increases. Between Right to Know, which has essentially become a full-time equivalent, and also with the recent problems we've talked about with the increased number of dining establishments in town, and the need for additional inspectors to support that effort. So I really had anticipated some increase in the base budget. You didn't have to do that. That's wonderful for the public. The other item, the 4% increase, I think is absolutely needed. We've neglected our parks dramatically over the last 20 years. In addition to that, I mean, that is an element of why people move to Radnor. Everybody always jumps right on and says schools. Well, absolutely. But what percentage of the households in this town have children in the schools? People I talk to move here because of the schools and the amenities, and also the government, where I think we've worked our way out of the problems we had 5 years ago. 4%, and the reason it's a bond and a tax increase is it's the way capital projects should be funded, so that the folks who are going to benefit from these improvements are the ones that pay for them. The whole burden doesn't fall on the current taxpayer. And if we were to fund it out of current funds, we would only do a fraction of it, and that's how we got where we are today with the condition of the parks, where there's equipment out there. I mean, we could not raise taxes, just go out and get rid of some equipment that's reached its age. Don't do anything with trails that are such an amenity to this community. So I'm very supportive of this, and I want to thank the staff for a great job putting this together.
Agree 100% with my the other commissioners' comments, and I just want to say that I'll be here 30 years next year, and I moved to Radnor 29 years ago because of the schools, but mainly because of the neighborhoods and the parks. I know that sounds strange, but when you're young, you're looking for a home, and you find a house near a park that's within a block of a park, that's a great find if you're going to have kids. So, you know, to that end, it was a great deal then, a great value when I moved in here 29 years ago, and boy, is it a great value now. Because I look where I came from, and not to take shots at Havertown, but their tax rate, the taxes on their homes are as high, if not higher, when it's all added together, and quite frankly, it's apples and oranges. So I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm here for 30 years, and I appreciate all the staff and all the people that work in this township, because that's why it's great. It's not great because of the house I'm in, it's because of the place I live. So thank you for all your hard work, all this time, and many of you have been here a long time. So thank you for your continued service to the community and making this a great place to live. Thank you.
Rich?
Bill, as far as fuel savings in this budget, do we have, how much do we have built in for reduction in fuel costs? We probably should have pretty good savings this year.
Well, the fuel lines across the board are held at where they're at this year. So if you're saying that we're going to save some money there next year, that'll add to the excess.
Let's say it again. I didn't understand.
So the budget from 15 to 16 for fuel is, we basically held the line. We did not show any increase, but we also did not show decreases.
Well, I'd anticipate we would have some decreases. We've had, price of fuels come down since you put together these original budget figures. So we expected to stay low through 16.
And if that comes to fruition, then that expense line will have a positive variance,
Okay,
which will add
all
to the
right.
bottom line.
So that's my answer to my question is we kept it flat, so that's fine. As far as the staff increases, we do have staff increases built into this budget, and I know where it is. It's basically with the police staff. I think it's about a 6% increase in wages. And Bob, and Bill, before we go off on this, okay, all right. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look and see if we can't. I know that's built into this budget, but with our friends at Villanova, let's really look hard where we can have some synergies, and we can utilize what benefits what they're going to be putting into their policing and their administration of their site to see if we can't offset some of our expense. And I'm going to challenge Villanova to do that as well, so that we can reduce that 6% increase that we have built into this budget for the expenditures for wages. I think the 4% increase is a significant number for the people, a lot of people in the township, and we should not disregard the feelings of many of the constituents. 4% means something to a lot of people in Radnor, and I think that in this particular case, I'm not going to support this budget because I don't believe that we need a 4% increase. I think that we could have, especially with the fund balance that we have accumulated from last year, I think that we can do better than 4%. and it is a significant number for a lot of people, and it should not be taken lightly. So I am supportive of the efforts of the township and the administration, and I want, again, to continue to look for ways as we go through 2016 year to realize material benefits in underspending what the projection is, and I think that we'll be able to get that from fuel and from other areas. But, and you know, so far this winter, we have a much warmer winter, so maybe we're going to come out a little bit better, a little bit ahead on that as well. So, and we have no papal visit. Okay, so you know, there's the benefits there. So let's although I can't support this budget with a 4% increase, I am supportive of the efforts and the continued benefits that will be realized as we move through this.
So my thoughts, so I want to echo the sentiment that the document itself is very user-friendly, particularly pages 3 to 18. So any resident could pick up, read pages 3 to 18, and get an excellent sense of how the money is being spent in Radnor. So in my opinion, if there's 18 pages separate you from understanding the budget, so those 18 pages are good reading. For me, like I said last time, there's just too much spending in it, too much borrowing. I just see too many big expenses coming down the road. I don't think we're in a position to make the kind of expenses that we're making in this particular budget. Again, like I expressed last time, I'm concerned about crowd out. So that's inspections, fire, police. This is in parks too. This is essentially the core element of what we do. And when we spend money on other things, we are crowding out the core element. I disagree with, you know, we're not going to hash it out tonight, but I don't think that the money that you're borrowing is an investment in infrastructure. I think you're getting some really great, or we are getting some really great park facilities. But, you know, investing in infrastructure, to me, that's, you know, sewer pipes, water pipes, things of roadways, things of that sort. So to me, this is money. The money that we're borrowing is to expand our park system. And to me, it's a little too much money for too narrow of a focus. So like the last budget, like the last version of this, I won't vote for it tonight. But certainly I do applaud the, you know, the effort that went into it.
Can you talk about our park spending we've had over the last few years?
Well, I think we've already talked about it. I mean, there's been, even tonight, there's been millions spent. I don't agree with the position that our parks have, you know, almost like they embarrass us. That's, you know, it's been presented to be almost that bad, and, you know, that's not my position. I think the parks are great, and I just don't think we're in a position to borrow this money.
Okay, Elaine?
Well, I'm not going to go over my support again, which I've done 3 times, and the last time we talked about this budget, but I will say one thing about just honing in on the parks spending. You know, we have a difference of opinion there. I defer to our Parks Board. We have a Parks Board of Citizens who inspect these parks. Every single one of those members has a park assigned to them, so they're very intimately familiar with what these parks need. And they've been literally begging for money for the parks for 5, 10 years. And we have been trying to keep our spending down. We haven't raised taxes in 3 years before this year, so that was what got cut out. Our park spending got cut out. And we're at a point now that those assets are deteriorating. We're at a point now where we would be taking down equipment and leaving it fallow because the equipment is outdated and dangerous. And that's, in my opinion, that's not the caliber of township that we are. And we've gone through the analysis. And actually, I want to mention, at our last meeting, we as a board made a request to our CARFAC to analyze 2 questions, in particular focusing on this bond that we're taking out and how appropriate it is. And one was on the metrics. The first question was on the metrics of where we are financially as a township, and, you know, would this taking out more debt jeopardize that financial position? And the second question was more, you know, is this an appropriate tool for covering the spending. We didn't ask them to opine at all on the appropriateness of the spending, whether we needed to do the spending, but assuming we needed the spending. We got a really excellent, thorough analysis last week, at the end of last week. I don't know if it's on the website yet. If it's not on the website yet, it will be on the website. And I encourage anybody who's thinking and worried about this debt that we're taking out to read it, because it is very encouraging and does a very good job of analyzing our position and sort of saying it's okay that we're doing this. Not opining on whether we should be spending money on parks at all, but if we are, that this is not jeopardizing our financial position at all. So with that all said, I am very supportive of this budget. I'm thrilled to see that we are finally making the commitment to spend the money on the parks that we need to spend. I know some people disagree. In my opinion, it is a need, it is not a want, to keep the standard of living that we have in this township, and it's time that we fund it.
Thank you, Elaine. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to say anything? All right, I'll not take my full 2 minutes. I'll keep it much shorter than that. I'm happy to vote for this budget. I think it's good. I think I was elected to make the township continue to be a magnet for people that want good parks, a good library, and now a good trail system. We've had 3 straight years of no tax increases. I think that's really a credit to our manager and his people. 2013, 14, and 15, flat on taxes. Yet we've maintained a fine system of government. And I do want to just pick up on what John Nagel said, and that is I do hope, Bob, that we'll be okay on inspections with our restaurants. We have a fine inspector in Larry Taltone. Is that how I should pronounce it? Sorry. But the growth of facilities to inspect is something that we should be really worried about. Restaurants, swimming pools, bathrooms. So I hope that we're on top of our inspection responsibilities. And last of all, the fire company, I don't think we should make this a decision, a conflict between the fire company's needs and our parks and library and trails. I got to thinking about the fire company, and I know they have this deficit of $126,000, but I think there's also, I won't call it mismanagement, but I think there's also room for improvement in the way they manage their business. They've got this situation with the hospitals where they deliver customers to the hospitals and aren't adequately compensated for that. And what compensation they do receive frequently goes around the barn before they get their hands on it. It goes to the patient, it goes from the insurance company to the patient, and then if the fire company is lucky, they'll get it. So I'm looking for the fire company to improve its management, and when I see that, then I'll be open to improving the amount of money that we contribute to them. So that's all I had to say on the budget, and I think we've all spoken on it. So, Bob, is there anything you wanted to add?
Sure, if I may. First, I'd just like to thank the board for their consideration of this budget and your comments. Throughout the year, we do hear a lot of the suggestions, ideas, comments, criticisms, ideas that you make to us. We do take those in throughout the entire year that you do make to us. Just to address a few items that did come up this evening, the health officer's position, we had reached out to several of the counties surrounding us to try to contract with them to assist with us. I know that there has been a problem trying to contract with them. We're in the process of drafting a position and looking to go out soon to advertise for a person to assist with Larry. So we're hoping that sometime within the next several weeks that we'd actually be able to get that advertisement out and then start collecting resumes for that position so that we'd actually start to get another person on board to assist Larry in that position.
Right,
So we did budget for the hiring a firm to actually help us out, but those dollars are still there, and that's incorporated within the budget. One of the existing positions that we did not fill with this round of police officers, so there is one vacancy that will exist. We have no plans to fill that position this year. Coming up in 2016, the reason why is we feel that the system is broken because we have gone through this route for probably the last 4 years, and we still have not had the opportunity to have the entire department filled to capacity. And as we're going through this, we are finding a number of candidates that we have 25, 30 candidates, and we struggle to get through that process. So we are looking to take the entire year to evaluate the entire process, the screening process, to work with the Civil Service Commission. So we have no plans to look at another test. And we're going to look to evaluate how we go through this process and the outreach too as well, how we go about soliciting candidates to be able to take this test. So that will be one item that we do not look to fill that position in 2016. The other item that we will look at is the right to know position. That would be something that we'll be having a conversation with the board next year, because as John Rice mentioned, with the number of right to know requests, it is evolving into a full-time position, and we cannot keep up with all those requests. So that'll be something we'll have a conversation with the board as well. We always look throughout the year at ways we can save money, reduce costs, and that's a big credit to the department heads that we have. I'm very impressed with all the staff that we have. They watch and monitor their budgets on a consistent basis. If they don't monitor and watch it, Bill and his staff, they remind them of that frequently, very often. And finally, I just want to compliment, again, our management staff, our department heads. They do a tremendous job of leading their departments, watching their budgets, assisting the staff, and the staff from top to bottom, they do a tremendous job. Those on the front line realize what their roles, and they contribute tremendously, and they do an outstanding job. And finally, I just want to thank Bill White. I know there's always a raised eye whenever I thank Bill, but Bill does an outstanding job. He watches every penny. It's rare here in the community that you have your entire checkbook out there online. Every penny that's spent, you can find out where it's at. It's online. It's interesting because we'll hear comments that the budget, the detail that's in the budget, I know when, like John spoke about, 30-page budget is we don't give enough, so you're hiding a lot. We've had comments that now you have a 200-plus page document where you're giving us too much information, so you're trying to hide it in there. So it's one end on one spectrum, now you got too much on the other end. Now we have the checkbook out there. So everything is out there for everybody to see. If there's something you don't see, I know you can reach out to Bill, Bob Tate, his entire department. They'll find you the information, point you in the right direction. But a lot of that has come from you, the board. You've asked for that information to be out there. You've pushed for that to be out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Oh, did we do public? Oh. You want to wait until we vote and then comment?
No, I would like to do it before you vote.
Okay, come on.
It's going to pass anyway because it's a good budget. Just Jane Galley, Barclayton Road. I do differ with the fact of needs and wants, et cetera, and it leads back to the Villanova sewage system sewer lady that I am. If Villanova goes forward and finds out, I don't know where the negotiation is between Lower Merion and you guys at this moment because I haven't heard, but if this falls apart, then we're going to have a big sewer problem, and that means I don't believe it should be the taxpayers of this township that should have to pay for it, because if it's caused by Villanova, they should pay for it. And I hope that you would take that in consideration as you go. This is going to be big if it happens, and it of course will come through my neighborhood, and I'm not going to have that happen again. Second of all, I do want to compliment our police force. They are of the highest caliber. I can tell you that when my kids were younger, and the police were good. But these guys are terrific. The way they are vetted, the way that their professionalism, it's wonderful, and they are worth every penny that is spent on them. So that's just my 2 comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. Is there anybody else? Last chance. No? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
And it passes 4-3. Thank you. All right, let's move ahead. John Fisher, we have 2 more items under
Yeah.
Finance and Audit.
A couple more, yeah. We have, I'll move Resolution 2015-127. This is authorizing to engage with Zelenkovsky Axelrod LLC as an independent auditor for the 3-year engagement. And Bill White, do you want to make a comment on this?
Well,
Yeah,
I'll second your motion.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. The township's charter requires that we put out to RFP every 3 years this service. So we did that, and I'll let Bob Tate, since I asked him to stay here all night, I feel like he should contribute to this part. He's more than happy to. But before I kick it off to him to explain the process we went through to get to where we are today, because we are making a change. We've been with Clifton Larson Allen for, we engaged them in 2009. They went back and redid 2008, and they've been with us all the way up through 2014. They are very professional. We hold them in the very highest of regards. Their firm does a great job. They were very fair, very thorough. So under no circumstances is this switch a reflection on their firm at all. But it is a competitive situation. And in this case, we felt like this firm, we're going to be referring to them as ZA, has the same caliber. They have a very impressive resume. They checked out very well with the references that we contacted, and we feel very comfortable moving forward with them, and they came in at a lower price point. So I just wanted to take a second and compliment CLA, Clifton Larson Allen, and let everybody know that this move had more to do with the process than any kind of result or product from their firm.
Thank you, Bill. Part of the process, the RFPs were posted, again, with the help of Melissa Kahn, who not only is the Right to Know officer, but also the administrator of our grants, contracts, bids, and RFPs. So Melissa posted the RFP, coordinated the responses, responded to inquiries. We had 8 submissions. When it was finalized, we reviewed those submissions along with Bill and I with the audit subcommittee of CARFAC. We narrowed the field from 8 down to 4. It's a process, interactive process with CARFAC, with the audit subgroup, to basically qualify the top 4 firms. From there, we took the top 4. We scheduled half-hour phone conferences with each group, and was able to then narrow the field from 4 to 2. Of course, CLA was one of the 2. So the only other firm, Zelenkovsky Axelrod, ZA, we then proposed that we schedule a meeting with their entire team, with our entire finance department. They agreed, and we last week had a meeting with their group, spent a good solid hour just getting to know them, they get to know us, understanding their philosophy, their approach, how they conduct audit, their timeline, and we were overall impressed with the firm, with the staff, and I agree with Bill. Parting ways with CLA was not easy. They're a very competent and credible firm. I'm sure they'll be back in the market in 3 years when we go out to RFP again. But ZA proved to be the firm that we wanted to move ahead with, very competitive cost, price point, and that's why the recommendation is here before you tonight.
Bob, I understand that ZA also had maybe somewhat better credentials when it came to CAFRs.
That was one of the things that we were impressed with. They had a very strong focus on the preparation of the comprehensive annual financial report. Several of their partners were former reviewers for the GFOA. They are very, I would say, very intimately knowledgeable and very familiar with the process and the practices of GFOA. So that's definitely one of their strong points. Another point I'd mention is that they were very clear that at the completion of field work, that they do not leave until we have draft financial statements in our hands. So we're very happy with their approach, their methodology, their practices, as well as the willingness. Wasn't just our timeline, but that's the way they do it, that we have the draft statements when they're finished, which is important to us as well.
Well, thank you for all that process. I know it was probably time-consuming and took a lot of energy. But, and I'm sorry to see Clifton Larson go. I thought they were really great to work with. But I'm also glad because that provision in our home rule charter, it isn't just about getting the best deal. It's about keeping fresh eyes, preventing cozy relationships. It's about more than just the money. And so I think it's very healthy to start with a new firm, and maybe we end up going back to Clifton Larson, but the provision is serving its purpose. It's really healthy for us to have some new relationships and new oversight.
Does anybody else want to ask anything? Just one question. Responsiveness. Where are they located? ZA, where are they located?
They have several offices. Their main office is in Harrisburg, but they have a local office in Bucks County. And the members of the team who will be performing the audit here in Radnor will be coming from this area, one from Conshohocken, one from Bucks County, two others. I don't know the exact location, but they're fairly close.
And was Clifford, Larson, and Allen conveniently located for us? Well,
their headquarters is in Plymouth Meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
But back to my first responsiveness, did you check out that aspect of their professionalism? Are they responsive? Do they come to you with answers when you ask for them on time?
In all of our dealings and throughout the process, they were very responsive, very professional, and I think their attention to detail with regards to the CAFR, as well as delivering the draft financial statements, impressed me in terms of how they view being responsive to our needs.
And when you checked other of their clients, did you get that same feeling, response?
Yes, their reference is checked out.
Okay.
Just want to make a comment that this is a resolution stating that we will engage with this firm for audit years 2015, 16, and 17. But the question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, is if we decided a year into this firm was not exactly what we thought they were, we could make a change and pass a new resolution. But are we entering into a contract with them that would bind us to a 3-year engagement?
They're annual engagements. We ask for 3-year pricing to be consistent with the charter span of time, but they're annual engagements.
Thank you.
But I should also qualify that we're going into this with the assumption that we have the same firm for 3 years.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you. And I just want to mention that it is a GFOA recommendation to change your audit firm every so many years for the same reason that Commissioner Schaefer had stated, a new set of eyes. And I have 100% trust in our staff, our administration at this point, so I'm not really all that worried about it. But quite frankly, you know, there could be turnover at some point, and it's always important to have that trust but verify piece. So we trust, we verify.
Yeah, and I would add that I appreciate that, and we too like the interaction. They bring different ideas. They always find things that we can make improvements on. So we're just as open as the commissioners and the public are to the suggestions from New Eye. So we're looking forward to it.
All right, or is there anybody in the audience that would like to address this subject? No? All right, then I think we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to hire the firm of Zelenkovsky Axelrod, LLC, for a 3-year period ending December of 2017, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And it passes 7-0.
All right, next up, I'll move Resolution 2015-126. This is establishing the wage and salary schedule for 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Curley? Okay. It's in the packet, John, right? So it's all self-evident. what
Yeah,
we're doing there.
just in terms of the resolution, it comports with the requirements of our existing FOP and rate contracts for 2.75% increases for the police officers effective January 1st, 2016, and for a 2.75% increase for the rate employees also January 1st, 2016. And there are some also rate increases for administration and other staff that are not covered by those agreements.
Okay. Does any commissioner want to make a statement at this point? Does anybody?
I have.
Okay.
In the resolution, no, sorry, in the memo accompanying the resolution, there's a note that says, actually it says, please note that increases for non-union staff will be up to 2.75% and will be based on each employee's performance evaluation. So my question to the administration is, how often, if ever, do we have someone that does not get the full amount?
It's every year. There are individuals that do not get that.
So your evaluation scale, how do you do that? Is it a certain percentage that do not get, or in other words, you have 5% that get above 2.5% and 5% that get below, or is it, how do you do that? Does the max that anybody gets is 2.75 and anybody just goes down? How does the evaluation system work?
Well, the max that any one individual could get is the 2.75. So it's going to be either 0 up to 2.75 for any, and it's on an individual by individual basis. So we've had, in each of the years, we've had cases where performance did not warrant any cost of living increase. There were some years where partial increases were given, all the way to performance improvement plans put in place that allowed employees to correct whatever was lagging or lacking and earn that 2.75 at a later date.
But it's not a bell curve, though. It's kind of a mountain. It's kind of like most people get 2.75 and then we trail off.
Yes, yeah, the overwhelming majority get the 2.75.
And my other question is, since this was previously adopted under Resolution 2014-49, why do we have to vote on this again? It sounds like we adopted the budget, and I think that I voted against that particular resolution, but I can't recall. But if we've already voted for the new contract, why do we need to do this as well?
It's a provision in the Township's code that says that a annual wage and salary schedule will be adopted by the board. So we're complying with that section of the code.
And didn't we have a wage and salary schedule adopted with the contract that was approved?
Well, we agreed to certain terms in those collective bargaining agreements, yes, but there is no set schedule. Well, in the FOP agreement, there is actually a set schedule. In the rate agreement, there is not. It's just the annual cost of living increases identified. So the members of that collective bargaining agreement get paid different rates all over the board. So this just establishes the actual pay schedule for those positions for 2016.
Right, thank you. No other comment? Anybody in the audience want to say anything? I think we've heard from our management. All right, then, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. And it passes.
I'm going to abstain. I don't believe I need to vote on this.
All right. And we have a vote
I have one
of,
item left.
5-2, it passes, and the recorded vote is 5 in favor, 6 in favor, and 1 abstention.
And my last item is item F, ordinance. I'll move ordinance 2015-25. This is an introduction, amending Chapter 44 of the Township Administrative Code. This is the investment policy for the pension fund.
This is the investment policy for all township funds. The policy itself goes into a lot more detail regarding the pension funds because it's more complicated. Periodically, we go through this ordinance, and for this one, and hopefully you've had a chance to go through the black line version of it. Well, it's actually red line, but I don't think we printed it in color. And so we're not making any real substantive changes here. We work as part of our engagement with PFM to move to a discretionary form of management on the pension and OPEB assets. We worked with that group on any kind of cleanups in the investment policy that were needed on their side for their compliance. So we worked on those, and that's what you see here tonight. Again, it wasn't a wide sweeping changes, just some verbiage cleanups, things that they felt were important to clean up in terms of limiting investment options, not only by township staff, but by them or any manager we have in the future. And then adjusting or correcting the allocation of assets, which was identified in the ordinance. They're not significant changes, but we wanted to add, in addition to having a range, we wanted to add a target, just another measure within the policy that we track their performance against. And then we also use that for making decisions on rebalancing, which they will do on a regular basis instead of our quarterly basis in the past. So we're looking for introduction tonight with an adoption then in January.
All right, can we get a second to the motion?
I'll second. I'll second, and I have a couple questions. So these changes were recommended from the pension advisor, from the PFM.
Yeah, they recommended, and then we went through and we accepted almost all of them. You're only seeing the ones that we accepted. There were some that they had that we took out.
And has CARFAC looked at them?
I did not run this through CARFAC, and the reason being is that in 2013 we did a much more comprehensive review that they were intimately involved in. Being that in this case we were just cleaning up terminology, I did not run it back through that group.
Well, it's not. I mean, they're definitely changing some of the allocation percentages, so not a lot, but it's not all just non-substantive. And I would feel better if they just if it's really not that big a change, it shouldn't be hard for them to look at, you know, just to kind of glance through and say, yeah, these are not substantive and we're okay with them. So I would feel better if they did look at it, especially since we're giving more discretion to this firm that is giving us these suggestions. It just seems, so that's my first comment.
Sure.
My second is a question about one of the changes, and that is on on the red black line version, it's on page 12. And it's under C, guidelines for portfolio holdings, 2, fixed income, subsection B, talking about the allowable percentage of below investment grade ratings securities, raising that from 15 to 25%. And I don't know a lot about a lot, but that just didn't sound great. So I just wanted to ask about that.
Sure. The comfort in that, or where we felt okay with that change, is in keeping in mind that the goal of the investment of these funds is targeted at 7.5% growth per year. That's the assumption we're using for the pension. In having our discussions with PFM, their recommendation is that in order to achieve that level, they recommended 25%.
Basically taking a more risk in that particular instrument.
Yeah, the counter or the alternative is if we don't feel comfortable with that risk, we need to evaluate the 7.5%. And not just this particular trigger, there's a lot of different triggers going on, but that was the rationale behind the recommendation. And being that we're at 7.5%, that's why we put it in there.
So I guess my point is, I get that, I understand it, and I'm not a finance person, so I'm assuming that's a rational explanation, but it's pretty substantive change. 25% in below grade would be a lot. So that's the type of thing I would love it if CARFAC glanced through that and said, yeah, that's a reasonable risk to take to get to 7.5%.
Sure. And the only thing I'd point out too is it's up to a maximum.
Right.
So at any given time, the portfolio is going to be built on, again, trying to achieve the goals of the fund. So if it's not needed, we don't need that full 25% capacity, it will not be there. If we can gain the income in the other areas or investment grade areas, that's where the money will be at.
Got
it. Going back to your original point, if the board would like, then we can certainly do that.
Well, that can be done between now and when we do the final vote.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so
I agree.
If the board's okay, what I'll do is we'll push the public hearing and the actual adoption maybe to the second meeting in January, which is the last week of January, I
That's
believe.
good.
So that's a little bit
Yep.
greater than a month to get through CARFAC, and so we'll bring it back at that point.
All right. And that helps with my request. I sent a memorandum to John and to Bill today, and I'm following my own policy now. I'm not going to get into the details. But I think the definition of fiduciary responsibility is definitely too weak for something this important. I think that we ought to seriously consider naming the offices of the persons that can handle these funds. There's no mention of who's allowed to handle it. And I think we should define, well, you saw my points, Bill, and you answered them. I think we need a definition of the pension OPEB board as well. Anybody in the audience want to comment?
Jim, do you have an edit you want to introduce now?
Well,
this is under definitions? Like OPEB?
Yeah,
Well, correct me. We could step through each of your points.
If we're going to introduce
All right.
this tonight,
Yeah.
then if Jim wants to make some, and I've looked at them, they're clarifications, they're not substantive.
all right, the definition of
Let's put them on the
fiduciary
record. Okay.
responsibility is very weak. I would recommend we have it say, where is this? The obligation of an official to act in good faith and candor for the benefit of the taxpayers and retirees, the intended beneficiaries under this ordinance. That's point one. The persons eligible to handle the funds, we don't need to name John Doe and Mary Smith, but we should name the offices that are eligible or allowed to handle the funds. That would be the finance director and the township manager, I assume. On page 6, or paragraph A3, lines 2 and 3, we attempt to cover outside investment managers, but this ordinance doesn't have scope to do that, so that ought to be changed. And that's all I have.
Bill, my opinion is that they're substantial enough that if you feel that there's merit to them, you've got to bring it back to us. Because I don't think it's prudent for us to try to craft this tonight. I don't know whether they're good suggestions or bad suggestions.
Yeah, so we'll bring this back for reintroduction next meeting?
If those
Let's clear it up,
points are
so
good
it's-
points,
Okay.
Well, if the board's okay with it, what we'll do is, we'll bring it back for reintroduction at the first meeting in January. Concurrently, I'll send it over to Carfax for their review. So we'll reintroduce it in early January with these corrections for then an adoption to be considered at the second meeting, if that's okay.
All right, and that'll take into account Elaine Schaefer's?
Yes, I'll send it to Carfax right away.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, then, there's no need to vote at this point, John Fisher. So,
I'm done.
yeah,
I'll withdraw the motion.
okay. And I think we're now up to,
Public safety. I'd like to
safety, thank you.
introduce, to move for adoption ordinance 2015-21, amending Chapter 262, the towing ordinance, to increase the hooking fee and the maximum cost of towing flat fee per hour, among other things.
is there a second?
Second?
Any commissioner comment? We've talked about this one before.
Yeah, again, just as last week, or last meeting, these are the types of fees that we are getting the constituents upset with us about. They feel that they're often, and once again, so, Bob, don't, yeah, I know what you're going to say about this. I know you disagree with me. We disagree on this. These types of fees are what the public really is feeling more and more, and you have more and more complaints about the township fees. The township should not be in a situation where we are collecting fees that the people feel are unfair. These types of fees are going to hit with students and children of constituents and others, and most people are not going to be impacted by this, but their kids might, or their son. I know my son, this is something that he hasn't done this yet, but this would be just the type of thing that he would do that I would get a bill for, right? And he would say, what the heck? So I recognize, and Bob made the point last week, or last meeting, that these fees haven't gone up in some time, and that we actually lose money on this, so we're just going to lose a little. It's going to reduce our outflow of expense for these services that are provided. Nonetheless, this is not something that I want to impose on the constituents, so I won't be voting to increase it.
All right. Is there anybody else that wants to comment? I think we have a second already on this, don't we? So is there anybody in the audience that wants to say anything? Yes, sir. You've waited a long time for your moment in the spotlight.
Hey, Joe. My name is David Money. I'm also a Radnor Township property owner and a towing business owner. I currently hold a license for towing off private property in Radnor Township, and I have some concerns about the proposed adoption, and I just wanted to go over some things we did. Since 1994, the power of state and local government to regulate the business of automotive towing has been restricted by federal law. According to the federal statute, state governments, cities, and local municipalities may only, 1, impose safety and insurance regulations, 2, set the price charged for non-consensual towing, and 3, require a written on-site authorization prior to a private property impound. That's it. No other laws or regulations relating to the price, route, or service of towing firms are expressly forbidden or preempted by Title 49 U.S. Code Section 14501C. With the exception of allowing control over the price charged for non-consensual towing, Congress intended to outlaw any local law or regulation affecting the economics or financial aspects of a towing company while leaving in place state and local safety regulations. So with that in mind, just wanted to go over some things. Now, price, safety, insurance, and written authorization is what federal government or Congress allows local government to regulate. So I think there's some things in the ordinance that are actually in violation of federal law. And I just wanted to go over a couple of them with you. And I also think it's discriminatory where in one of the sections, if you want to be a police tower, the place of business must be located within the township boundaries. Do you do that with any other contracts? Like if the paving company to repave the streets, are they required to be located in Radnor Township?
No.
Okay, so me as a resident, I pay a yearly license fee, but I can't tow for the police, but I can tow off private property. Is that really fair?
This is public comment.
Okay.
Mr. Money.
Okay, one of my other concerns is the hooking fee, the $95 hooking fee in all instances. Now that applies to all vehicles, whether it's a 72 Volkswagen, a 2016 Lamborghini, an 80,000-pound tri-axle dump truck loaded with hazardous materials, or an 80,000-pound tractor trailer loaded with eggs. I think that, like I read a little further down the ordinance where, heavy vehicles is $200 an hour. I think if you want a hooking fee to apply to every vehicle, then it should be $200 an hour. Why would you require a towing company to charge $95 to hook onto a tractor trailer? So I don't think the hooking fee really is fair, unless you put a weight limit in with the hooking fee and I would put it at 9,000, because where you have it at 10,000 pound truck is a 6-tire truck, where 9,000 would be a 4-tire vehicle. And then I also question the $200 license fee increase. Why are the tow truck license $200, but a contractor's license in Radnor Township is $50 or $100? And then I also question where the police superintendent, after 2 violations, can suspend or take away the tow truck operator's ability to reapply for a tow truck license in 2-year period. I don't even think the Liquor Control Board is that tough, but with bars that violate liquor control laws, but like we're talking towing. Why would you, what violation would require a 2-year suspension of a tow truck license? And then the other thing, have personnel available at least once an hour to return a towed vehicle or an impounded vehicle to its owner between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. So I guess that's Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve, that applies too, because it doesn't say that it excludes holidays. But what about my safety? What about if I got to return at 11 o'clock at night to return someone's car that might be intoxicated or upset that their car got towed? I don't really think
where are you reading on that one, Mr. Moen?
That is, that's in the original ordinance, not the pending adoption. That's
okay.
And then,
Mr. Chairman, when Mr. Money is done, I just have a couple of quick comments regarding.
When he's finished,
okay, sure.
Okay, and then getting back to the hooking fee, I've actually challenged. I've been to federal court 5 times. I've filed complaints against 5 municipalities. In each case, down at 6th and Market, they showed up with 2 solicitors. Their solicitor, their insurance solicitor, and we settled out of court. And one of the things with the hooking fee was that they agreed to increasing, like the police chief said at the last meeting, this hasn't been addressed in 10 years, so that towers don't have to keep coming back. 5 municipalities agreed to have an automatic yearly escalating fee increase of $5 on the hooking fee and $10 on the towing fee. You might want to consider that. And then I also wanted to make a suggestion too, as far as you getting involved with the setting of tow truck rates. A couple years ago, I had to go to Wilmington and pick up a car that was, a customer asked me, that was towed by the police. They put their police, the city of Wilmington, Delaware, puts their police towing out to the lowest bidder. The cost of that tow was a penny, and storage was 5 cents a day. So that might be something you might want to consider too. And then another thing concerns me, like I said, price, that's towing price, safety, insurance, and authorization. you have no add-on fees that are allowed. And I don't understand, why do you allow the police towers to have add-on fees, but you don't allow the private property towers to have add-on fees? I have found in the litigation that I had in federal court that usually whatever the police towers can do, the private property towers, they give them the same, they're fair about it. And I don't understand why, you would even have that. Because, and I'll give you an example. If I'm called out to tow a car and it's got a snowplow came by, it's in the wintertime, and there's a big pile of snow, and I have to shovel that out, I can't charge extra for shoveling that out. Or another situation I get into is I get to a commercial property that has parking under the building or a parking garage, and it takes a couple people to push the car. It gets to a point where, sometimes we even have to bring in a small pickup truck to drag the car out of a parking facility so that we can hook onto the tow truck. We can't always just hook onto the car. So sometimes there's a need to have an additional fee, and this ordinance doesn't allow that. And I'll be honest with you, in the 5 other cases that I took down to 6th of Market, none of those ordinances had no add-on fees. And then let me just see if there's anything else here. Oh, also with the hooking fee, I run into situations where we hook onto a car, the people come out, and they stall around, they make phone calls, they don't have the money on them. It turns into longer than the tow takes. And I think there should be a time limit on the hooking fee where they have to, pay the hooking fee within 15 minutes, not let it stretch out. And then they call the police, and then the police come, and then the police try to resolve everything. And we're tying a $60,000 tow truck up for an hour. And that's it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we addressed that. It says 15 minutes right in the ordinance, if you read it. As far as the add-on fee for the police tow, the reason there's an add-on fee, it's the cleanup fee, and that's to protect the residents. And to Commissioner Booker's point about the public being gouged, we're proposing a $95 hooking fee. Mr. Money thinks it should be higher than that. So we're actually keeping it lower.
I agree with you on that. What about he said it was one penny for the tow and 5 cents a day in Wilmington. So how does that come into play here? Can't we get that?
I don't know where that came from. I don't know how he got that.
Can I just
the rates I have on
add
here
something here?
are from townships around the area. That's how I came up with these rates.
Go ahead.
Just to add, there's some history with the towing ordinance. Mr. Money, I think, had an attorney the last time this ordinance was revised who sent the police department and myself a list of suggested changes on the last round. Some of them were done then, some of them are in here. There was no hearing. If the police superintendent revoked your license, there was no due process. We put that in this ordinance. So I'm aware of federal law. She was representing the towers in the area, and it was very one way. We took, right, you had legal counsel, 3 years ago? We took a large number of her suggestions and made revisions. The fees in here that have been increased are for police tows. When there's an accident, a DUI, a hit and run, these are not for the tows that this gentleman does. He does not do the police tows.
So, his point is we're not increasing the private property tows.
Which we don't know what they would charge.
Right,
in some cases.
and so I guess the point that he makes, which seems valid to me, is for police charges for heavier vehicles and for the tractor trailers, et cetera, why is there not an increase, right? So my point is not to, I didn't say gouge, you said I didn't say that word, no, right? So there we go. It's a perception issue, right? So my concern is the constituents and our residents. But if you do have to tow a police tow for a tractor trailer or for a dump truck, is the gentleman correct that there is no additional charge for that?
Yeah, for heavy equipment, it's $200 an hour for heavy equipment vehicles. When we call for a tow for heavy equipment, tractor trailer or something, it's $200 an hour.
So that it's the same hooking charge, but the $200 an hour picks up that additional equipment, et cetera, to get those heavy vehicles.
The hooking charge is if the tow truck came to the scene and the driver, if it was broken down, decided that he did not need a tow anymore. He's going to fix the car there. He would have to pay that $95 hooking fee because the towing truck came for that specific reason, but it was not removed. That doesn't happen with heavy equipment.
Okay, but my question is, right, the police tow, there is an additional, not again, it's not my issue, but it seems that reasonable that if the police have to tow a tractor trailer versus a passenger car, that $200 makes up for the additional expense involved with towing that heavier vehicle, or are these unrelated items?
Yeah, they're two separate items. The hooking fee is only regarding a vehicle that is not removed from the scene, and the tow truck shows up there to take it. The owner decides he's going to get his private tow.
Okay. All right. So, in essence, the additional expense associated with the larger vehicles is built into this, and the hooking fee is just something that's ancillary. It's unrelated to that.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I clarify something? The hooking fee for $95 applies to all vehicles made on Earth.
Right, right. So again, my issue is that we don't charge the constituents something that is unreasonable, and we don't increase that, and you don't think that that's the case here at this point?
No, and one of the things too, Commissioner, we now are going to have a release form, because like Mr. Money said, we don't want somebody drunk showing up at a tow yard in the middle of the night. So they have to get a release form from the police department, and if the person is intoxicated and they don't have the proper identification or whatever, we don't release the car. So that's built into this. That's another reason for the increase.
I have a fundamental question here.
What he's talking about doesn't apply to me, though. I have to release the car. I'm not talking about a police tow in my situation. I have to release the car at 9 o'clock or 11 p.m., whether it's Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. It's in the ordinance, right?
So explain to me when this. So we have. This doesn't address. He has a $95 hooking fee for a private property. He has to bring the car back and then deliver it if they pay the $95 within.
No, if it's a private tow and he shows up, it's on private property. The owner of that private property calls up to hook this vehicle. He comes there, hooks the car, and the owner comes out and says, "That's my car." They are required to pay $95 to release that car right there at the scene.
That's whether
If he does not release, if he does not come up with the $95, then he removes the car from the private property and charges at his rate.
He can charge whatever he wants.
And so what's your issue with then you have to redeliver it? What's your issue?
My issue is, like he said, if there's a tractor trailer parked illegally on private property in Radnor Township, and we come out with a big tow truck, which is normally $200 an hour, and we start hooking up to that truck, and the driver comes running across the street and says, "Yeah, I'm back," we can only charge $95. And
in other words, Commissioner, he wants more money for not towing it. He's not satisfied with just the $95.
Correct.
Well, I mean, at what point, we've had issues in this township with towing before, and I like the ordinance the way it's written, and I like the idea that the driver of that vehicle has a chance to run out and say, "I want to move my vehicle." So you want to make money, but these people want to have a life. So, you want to make a lot of money, they want to have a life. So we need to balance it. You want to extort money that way?
He didn't say it's not extortion.
It kind of is.
No, the issue here is
the owner, they take advantage of this. Okay, so let's not go back to those days where people were getting their cars towed. It was $275 to get your car back, and you went to pick up the car and you couldn't pick it up. You went to the yard, it was locked, and then you paid another day of storage, right? People are
I
paying
agree.
$200, $300, $400 to get their car back.
I agree
in 2 or 3
100%.
days because the owner of the yard was away for the weekend.
Right.
So we're not going to do that again. And this is
that
a
makes
good
sense.
ordinance. I think it's fair. I think it's reasonable.
And what the township should be able to do is when they're pulling a tractor trailer that's wedged under one of the bridges because they didn't look at the signs, should be able to recoup that, right? That's a police tow, and that's what we're calling for, the $200 an hour.
Let's vote.
So that makes sense.
My question was, does this ordinance apply only to police requested tows, or does it apply to tows off of private property and police requested tows?
This entire ordinance that you have in front of you tonight is for duty tows. The only difference to private tows is the annual fee from $100, it's going to go up to $200.
Okay, and that's written in here?
Yes.
And it doesn't, the $95, it doesn't change that. The $95 is what it was for private tows, and it stays.
Yes.
And basically, the constituent wants, well, why don't you add, why can't I charge more when I do it, right? And we're not allowing that.
Right.
Right, which is good.
Has this ordinance covered the man's complaint about being held up for an hour and dickering over the terms of the tow?
Yes, it used to say reasonable time. We changed it. I spoke with John Rice about it. We changed it to 15 minutes.
It's in here.
And have we addressed the annual escalation issue? Is that in here?
Regarding,
No, that's a fee that I think Mr. Money suggested that some other municipalities and some other states have a $5 increase every year, I think is what he was referring to. Ours is 95. It's not escalating up or down. It's what it is, and it's set in the ordinance.
Which is what we want. We don't want to jack around with that.
If it's going to change, it would have to come back.
And lastly, I think he made a point about the excessive weight of a vehicle that's towed. He felt that this flat fee covering a very light vehicle is fine, but a heavy vehicle, it's not fair.
for the duty tows, we have 10,000. Me doing the truck inspections, a commercial vehicle in Pennsylvania with a Pennsylvania tag on it, a commercial vehicle is considered 17,001 pound. So we're starting us at 10,000. So technically, under the PA statute for that, it's 17,001 is considered a heavy equipment in Pennsylvania. If that helps.
Okay. Let's let him be heard. Come on up. I can't.
He said the discriminatory element of it because he has to live in the township in order to be able to tow in the township? The business has to be located in the township in order to have it do private tows.
For a police tow.
For duty tows.
Yeah, this
For
is
police
this
tow
is a
only.
good thing for our residents.
Yeah, once again, the problems come up with these private tows, and that's exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you don't want the resident to have to go to, say, to Philadelphia to get their car back if they had a tow from Radnor. And the other thing is, if you're charging by an hourly rate, so if the tower is outside of the area, what if they're 2 hours away and they come over and tow your vehicle? Now you're paying.
And they tend to want to do that for the main
So, I
line
mean-
too, because they think it's easy.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay, I'm voting against it.
All right. It passes 6-1.
To move the adoption of ordinance 2015-22, authorizing a no parking anytime sign to be installed on Conestoga Road at South Wayne Avenue.
Second.
Any discussion on the board? Anybody in the audience?
The only thing I'll say, if I can,
Yeah.
is I emailed this out. Every response I got about it was positive. Everybody was very happy
Okay.
about this being put in Ward 3, so this is a good thing.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. It passes 7-0.
I'd like to move the adoption of ordinance 2015-23, authorizing a new stop sign to be installed on Gala Road at Loudon Lane.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion here?
Nope.
Anybody in the audience? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And it passes 7-0.
Finally, I move the adoption of ordinance 2015-24, rescinding ordinance number 1259 dated April 27, 1965 for the 2-hour parking on Gallagher Road.
Second, Mr. Nagel.
So what's the rationale for this one?
Don?
Is rescinding the, from 1969? Or 65, or, it's been in place a long time, so why are we rescinding it?
I
The
had a
res- the
handful of
residents.
residents ask
Right.
me to put it through staff traffic. We put it through staff traffic. You had submitted a petition to the immediate neighbors.
That's correct, sir. The majority of the residents were in favor of rescinding the ordinance
And
for
then
residential parking.
I mean, my anecdotal observation is that the trail parking there does not overwhelm the parking. So consequently, what was happening was the residents couldn't park there because of this ordinance, and it was just empty parking. So it didn't seem to, my anecdotal observation, I'm assuming staff traffic shares it, that it's not necessary, and it's significantly negatively impacting upon the neighbors who live there.
Because they can't park.
Yes, because they have to move their cars after 2 hours. So now they won't have to move their cars after 2 hours.
Yeah, the roadway's plenty wide.
Correct.
Yeah.
So how does
Roadway's wide
the
enough.
trail impact on that again?
It's along the trail on Gallagher.
Yeah.
So, yes. So I'm assuming that the logic of this is to balance between the neighbors and the trail. But my observation is that there is not like I was down Saturday at noon, there was ample parking there. So, and then also the neighbors that are most concerned are in a different part of this. So if it becomes problematic, we'll look at it, and maybe we'll put a little bit of trail-only parking there, or 2-hour parking. But right now, my sense is it's best to eliminate the 2-hour parking altogether, and I'm assuming staff traffic shared that because that was their recommendation.
Correct.
But the original provision from 1965 didn't have anything to do with the trail. So what was the original purpose then? It was the original purpose was 2-hour parking, nothing to do with the trail. So why is the trail coming into play now?
The issue was there were some residents there that their driveway wasn't big enough to hold 2 of their cars. So in turn, what was happening was they would park it on Gallagher, they would get a ticket. So what we decided to do was we polled the residents there. They were in favor of removing the restrictions to allow parking. The roadway it's plenty wide enough to hold vehicles to park there, and actually it'll help slow vehicles down by letting them park on the street there.
But originally, the concept was in 1965 that we didn't want those cars on the road.
Correct. And that was mainly due, I believe, up farther towards Lancaster Avenue. You have some commercial properties up there that were parking down along Gallagher.
I think that's the answer he was looking for there. Okay, if there's no further comment, then we'll vote on this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And it passes 7-0. And we're now at Public Works and Engineering, and there's no report. Is there any Parks and Recreation report?
2 things. Next week, the winter and spring rec brochure is coming out, and also this past week was the Santa's delivery. I understand John was a Santa, and Luke had them at his house. So I'll let both of them speak if they wish about this is just an overwhelming success, and it just gets better.
Yeah, sure. It's the 3rd year,
Yeah.
and they've come to my cul-de-sac every time, and it really gets everybody excited. They do a great job. My kids have loved it every year. I can't speak highly enough of it, so it's been great.
And they also came down Belrose Lane and stopped at my next door neighbor who had a gathering there, and they had it was well received. There was 40 kids or so that were at that party, and so it was well received as well.
Well, I just want to prop up the chief over here because he was one of the, 3 years in a row. And I would say the star, if you could rate the Santas, I think he would get the highest rating because I think I hear really good things. So, yeah, well, and heavier and
Santa Claus is an elf. He's a jolly old elf.
But anyway, I want to thank staff. You know what? I just got to say, not because I was a Santa, it was amazing the effort of staff. I think it was 750 presents were given out. Parents dropped those off. They had to be cataloged, addressed, and quite frankly, at least on our run, we did 170 gifts, and I don't think we had a single mix-up. So that's pretty amazing. And the police department, amazing escort, and the fire departments, we had, I think it was 3 departments. Broomall, was it Berwyn? I forget exactly. It was Broomall, Bryn Mawr, Radnor, Berwyn. Did I miss Sweets? Yeah.
Sweetland.
Yeah.
And Gladwin.
And Gladwin. So there were 5. So, but what a tremendous service. And I just got to tell you, just because I was firsthand seeing it, the families and the kids, I think it was equally received well. The parents were just as excited as the kids. So thank you all, and Bob and staff and Bill, all of you for doing this. And I don't think you can measure the impact. I think it's just something that's going to be remembered. I know I've talked about it with other people, and they're like, where do you live? How do they do that? So, I just go back to, it is one of the best places to live. So thank you for that.
All right, we're up to library. Mr. Booker?
I have no report.
And we have public health. We have any public health tonight?
No, I was an exec rather than being at public health meetings. So.
Okay. All right, is there any old business? Any new business?
Yeah, I have one item for new business. So
1017.
We're appointing boards and commissions. And we have 2 appointments for the Stormwater Advisory Board. And my sense is that we should use this opportunity to sort of change the mission of that board. And it's, Rich has talked about, we put them in a position and we made it difficult for them. So my sense is that we should ask staff to come back, revise the ordinance. I know staff has some concerns. I know the members have some concerns. Come back with a revised ordinance that has a redefined mission. And then in that, I think we have to decide whether we want the group to be an advisory group or sort of an advocacy group or a technical group. Right now, it's morphing between the two. My sense is it should be a technical group. I think we should reduce the number of members and dispense with the ward requirement because that's kind of constraining us, making it difficult for us to get the mix that we need. I still very much believe that we should have the watershed approach to it. I don't know that, there might be 4 votes for that now. So I think that that's something that we should consider also, that the budget would be distributed on a watershed basis. And then the revision should include the technical concerns or address the technical concerns that staff has identified. So,
well, what are you saying is not working now?
Couple of, where do you want me to start? So,
Don, can I get you
where you want?
Can I get him to back up what? So we have a resolution that formed the committee.
Yes.
And the watershed spending is not in that resolution that I remember. That's
Correct.
a different.
Correct.
That's a whole different. So I would appreciate if you just separate those two.
But I don't want to separate because the watershed. The reason why we appointed on the ward approach was to distribute the people geographically, and I viewed it as a compromise to. Commissioner Nagel and I were advocating for the watershed approach, and you did not want to do that. And then as what I viewed as a compromise, you adopted the ward approach. And the ward approach is not working, in my opinion. And, so I don't think we should do that, but that doesn't mean that I'm backing away from the watershed approach.
But wait, that's two
but
different issues. Spending on the watershed basis and appointments on watershed basis are two different things.
Well, they
So,
weren't for me. I mean, they might have been for you. For me, the more that we can make the approach on a watershed basis, the better.
Okay, but Don, okay, so in my opinion, that's contrary to going the technical route. If we want this to be a technical advisory committee, they're no longer worried about the dollars.
Very good.
They're not worried
Very
about.
good. So,
right?
so meaning
so let's
that,
go
it may be a good
technical.
argument. It's just a good argument for a different day.
Okay.
Is that right? That's what you're saying?
So just to bolster your position here, I really believe that if we can have the if we can have the Stormwater Committee be more like the CARFAC Committee, a very technical committee where appointees, people that we appoint to that committee actually have technical expertise that can help us understand these issues better and give us some advice. We don't want them making decisions. We just want them to give this board advice and maybe even aid staff in coming to some understandings. But reducing the head count on that committee makes a lot of sense. Right now, I think it's 7. Going down to 5 would make sense. And then trying to get highly qualified practitioners on that committee would make a lot of sense. And taking away that political decision-making.
Yes, the advocacy component.
Which is where all the friction seems to be, because we're hearing friction from the committee itself, from the community at large, and from staff.
Yes.
So why not
So
eliminate
that's, Jim, those are some of the concerns that I'm hearing, that there's friction there. One of the concerns is that we have 2 people from the 3rd Ward because we redistricted. We don't want to lose either, I'm assuming we don't want to lose either of those people simply because you changed the line. Staff has indicated publicly that there's difficulty getting spending approved. I mean, we have, for some reason, we set that up where even what Steve Nursini called routine spending had to go through that group, and he had to take time and delay when it wasn't necessary. It was something like repairing a culvert.
That's a valid point. I'm fine with that. It has taken them 2 years, and they've approved only 2 or 3 projects.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe that's the start. I don't know. We could, at this point, it's just a concept. If we're agreeable with it, then staff would come back with a resolution that addresses these things, and then we would have a debate about the particulars.
And my only concern is that we have 1 member, we have 5 members on there right now, 2 open seats, right? Wards 4 and 6. We have 2 people from Ward 3 right now, and one of their terms is going to expire at the end of the year. So I don't want to lose her in the lag time between December 31 and whenever we get this done. So even if we do something in between, just making it all at large or something quickly, or something to keep this person on there, because I don't want to lose qualified good members who want to serve.
5 people that are on the board right now, and they become the board in January of 16 is fine with me.
Yeah, whatever we can do. And then the other points, I'm fine with getting into them. I just don't want to lose
But
somebody.
You're governed by the existing resolution.
Which I just sent to everybody.
Okay, great. But to your point, can I just say this? If that person cannot serve January 1st because of their geographic location, that doesn't preclude them from being reappointed once the new resolution is in place. So you may lose them for a few weeks.
We say that now, but we're debating this, right? And this has been a big issue. This has been a problem.
I'm not going to be here to debate it in January, but I would argue,
us except John.
I would ask that
this could take months, and I don't want to see that happen.
John Rice to draft a new resolution constituting the Stormwater Advisory Committee for 2016, and
Right. I make that motion. You understand to address the issues that we discussed tonight?
You want to eliminate the ward appointments?
Yes, I think I think that there's a consensus that that's going to be problematic.
Yeah, and I'd ask at the very least that on a short-term basis. I'm okay with revisiting the whole thing, but I don't want this to turn into, I don't want us to be in June and we lose 6 months of contributions from someone who wants to serve.
And you can, I mean, we can take the terms of the board and we can extend them for 3 months, right? We can take the existing I mean, the resolution can do this. It can take the existing terms, extend everybody for 3 months, and then we figure out the details of the revised resolution.
And I just sent this to you. The way it was set up is there was an advisory committee of 7 electors, 1 from each ward. Then when they were initially appointed in 2013, they were appointed for staggered terms. So I don't know who's got the 1-year term, the 2-year term, and then once you get to the point where then it's a 3-year term. So right now, I think there's 5 people that are holding seats. There's 2 vacancies.
Correct.
And one of the current members was redistricted into the same ward that Luke's ward.
Into the same ward as the chair, who is going to serve all the way through 2016. Right. So that's the problem.
So that person that got redistricted, she's gone unless she becomes an at-large member or you eliminate the ward designation. So that resolution did that, and then it lists the duties of the committee, and it lists a whole series of things. That's what's in your resolution. What do you want me to do with it for the next?
Can I make a suggestion? The makeup of the group and taking away the ward aspect is something I think we have 7 votes for, and it's a simple resolution. Let's do that for January.
I'm
Get
not
that
sure.
done, or maybe 6 votes. Get that done, and then the other changes are more substantive and will require a little bit more thought and debate. We may have a second set change to the resolution in 6 months when we decide, or 5 months, or 3 months. Yeah. Because those are more substantive, and we're going to need some input.
The wrinkle to that for me, sorry for complicating it, is that for me, taking the ward approach away only works if we shift the group into a pure technical role.
Which I think we're all
So if it's an advocacy group,
with.
then I want it to have
right.
the full geographic representation. If it's a technical group, then I don't want it to bind it to
Don,
the
I think we're all in agreement that is something we'd like to change, make it more technical. I think it's going to be a little more complicated given what the duties are now and how it's functioning. And we're going to need to hear from Steve about how he feels about changing it as well. So that is going to be a process. It may only be a month or 2, but it's going to be a process. The resolution changing the makeup is simple. So,
yeah, and de facto, it's going to continue as currently compromised, right? So we do have 5 wards, I mean, really 4 with 2 and 3, but, you know, it's not like we're reconstituting the makeup in terms of the individuals here. We're not changing anybody substantively.
So you're eliminating the ward appointments, staying at 7 members. The people whose terms have not ended, they'll continue to fill out their terms.
Sure.
And then you'll revisit the substantive parts of the resolution somewhere next year.
Yeah.
So all I'm going to do is amend this then to eliminate that, and the at-large members have to, they'll all be 3-year terms. So I'm just going to, there's no at-large members. It's just, we're just going to eliminate the ward appointments, and you'll have 7 members. Okay?
Yeah.
I think we're rushing into that. That's probably not a good idea unless it's accompanied by an overall shift. So Don has it right. If you're going to make, it should be 2 or 3 person, I think, anyway. Maybe, 2 or 3, it's an advisory. It doesn't need to have 5. But that aside, it's going to be a technical group. That's when you eliminate the representation. If you're not going to do that, if you're just in the interim, then I'm against that. The representative aspect of it was because this is collected from everyone, and then it's going to be spent where there's advocates. And the second ward, all right, John Nagel, you ready? We put the most in my ward, we put the most money in there, and we get the very least consideration. So go ahead, John, go ahead, complain, that's not true. It is true, but that's the issue. I want to have a second ward person on there and so that we can have a voice heard of the second ward, where we have the least amount of stormwater issues as determined by the currently constituted Stormwater Committee.
But there is someone from Ward 2 on there right now, right?
That's right.
Right. So what
are
I'm
you worried
saying is there is representation, and what Elaine and I are talking about is a Band-Aid so that this doesn't prohibit somebody from serving who wants to serve. I mean, we've got 2 vacancies, and we're going to have 3 if we don't do something about this. And this is someone who has emailed me with all kinds of ideas. Her technical, I think she has some significant technical savvy. She's come up with ideas on how to get grant money, things of that nature. And we're going to tell this person thanks, but no thanks. It makes no sense to me. And again, I want to believe that we're going to, get this thing done quickly, but we're a board of 7 up here. I'm telling you, we could be sitting here in July losing out on this service, and it makes no sense.
Can't you just
It's a
take the
Band-Aid.
existing members and extend them for some period of time by resolution, and then give us?
Well, the 5 people that are on there were appointed to existing terms in place. So, you're going to leave them alone. They're going to finish out their terms, and then whatever vacancies come up or exist come January, you can reappoint whoever you want, regardless of the.
Well, but the point that Luke is making is that we can't reappoint Regina because she won't, or one of them will have to be set down and not appointed.
That's the ward component. That's not a term
which we
component.
We don't want to do that.
So all we have to do is eliminate the ward component for now.
Right, that's all.
That's it.
That's all.
Yeah,
And we're still going to have.
And then the new appointments won't be tied to a ward.
And we'll still have 4 wards represented, and 1 will be new to 3 from 6. So it'll be sort of 6, sort of Ward 6. So
Assuming we get the rest of it done, so
what I'm saying is let's get this done, and then let's keep this person on while we work on the substantive changes. I'm not opposed to revisiting
that makes
it.
sense. So that's my suggestion as to how we proceed.
Okay, I think we're all clear. Is there any more new business, old business?
That's all I got.
All right. Is there any public participation?
Jane Galley, Barclay and Road. One quick comment. I'd like to thank all the boards of commissioners that were at our meeting on December the 7th, which was regarding the arming of the Villanova police force. I think it went very well. We had probably a little over 30 people here. It brought out a lot of things that I'd not thought about, and I think it allowed the people township members to voice their opinions about what they worried about, what they were hoping is going to happen, or questions about who's on first, the old adage. And I think it allowed our township manager and the police force to understand our worries, and so that when they go into negotiations with Villanova, they have information from us. And I appreciate it. And so when they get their memo of understanding, maybe some of our concerns have been ironed out. I'd like to thank everybody that showed up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Is there anybody else? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn in a second?
Move to adjourn.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. It passes 7-0. Thank you.